In the village lived a very beautiful lady and a terrible witch. The latter was ugly, with dull hair and bulging bones, but worst of all, her body gave off the most horrible stench. She was known as the cursed witch. She kidnapped and ate small children, and her curses were so powerful that they wreaked death everywhere. Because of her, a plague swept the village. The beautiful lady couldn't stay away any longer, and uniting people, she chased the witch into the dark forest. After that, peace finally came, and no one ever heard of the witch living in the forest again. The woman told the children not to go into that forest, and if they saw the witch, they should run away at once, otherwise she would catch them and eat them. The boys accepted her words and ran for a walk. The blonde-haired boy asked the others why she was a cursed witch, not a cursing witch. The other called him a fool and replied that it was because she stank. Two men in cloaks heard them. One of them pointed out that there were other backwards places where mages were called witches and called them ignorant rednecks. However, the second man just silently walked on. The first man shouted for him to wait, because he couldn't just walk away silently. Next, we are shown the Baron Valencia's estate. The maid poured tea for the Baron and his wife, after which they let her go. At the window sat their daughter Ariadne, who asked if it was definitely not a dream. Her father, Baron Valencia, replied that the rumours must be true, since his path stretched even through the countryside, and that the Crown Prince was indeed looking for a bride. Ariadne replied to her father that she was really sure of herself. After all, even if it is the Crown Prince, how could anyone not fall for her at first sight? Her father only needed a little help, and she would take care of the rest. The Baron agreed, for what he would not do for his daughter. The Baron thought about it. The Crown Prince doesn't even look at ordinary girls. He can't believe that he is looking for a bride in small villages. He wondered what had gotten into the Crown Prince. Abruptly, Ariadne scolded, asking how this filthy lowlife dared. The Baron asked to be calmer to his daughter and said he would come out. However, Ariadne stated that no, she would do it herself. The guard at the gate stated to the filthy girl that how many more times should he say that she is not allowed in here? And he added that before lying that she was the Baron's daughter, let her wash her face first. The girl's name is Layla. The guard asked her if she had bathed in a cesspool. How could she smell like that? Just then, they were called out. The guard turned around and saw the lady and asked her why she had come here. Ariadne replied that she would talk to Layla and the guard could go. The guard did not immediately understand, to which the mistress simply ordered him to go away. The guard obeyed the mistress and stated that he would wait nearby. Layla stated that her house was falling apart, so she came. She has not been sent anything from the estate for 3 months now. She has nothing to eat. Ariadne asked her seriously how much longer she would demand to be cared for. At Layla's age, it was high time she learned to take care of herself. She urged Layla to find herself a husband and bring her whims to him, or to earn her own living, if she wasn't ashamed to live like this. Ariadne exhaled and tossed her a coin on the ground and said that if Layla needed something, she could just buy it. Layla noted that Ariadne knew she couldn't go to the market. Ariadne clarified why she couldn't, if it was because of the stench. Layla was outraged, but Ariadne stated not to force her to repeat herself. She added that the mere sight of Layla gave her the creeps, and what if Ariadne started to stink because of her too? Layla was mad as hell. Ariadne told her to stay out of her sight and called her a damned stinking witch. As it rained, Layla returned to her hut. She noted that the rain made it so slippery that she hurt herself again. She wandered around all day, but found nothing useful. And she still had to clean up, make clothes from leftover fabric, and at least put a bucket where the roof was leaking. Layla wondered what she could even do in this darkness. After everything, even if she could use the money, she wouldn't lay a finger on Ariadne's handout. When she was born, Layla was immediately rejected by her parents because of her foul stench. Ariadne was born a year later, but she, her older sister, was absolutely nothing to her. Even the nannies refused to take care of Layla because of her disgust. She was eventually sent to the barn, away from the estate. So a few years passed, and suddenly, looking out of the barn, Layla saw the Baron asking Ariadne if she really liked it that much. The girl answers him positively, noting that this is her 8th birthday present, and it's the foal she wanted so badly. She's very glad that her father remembered it. The Baron replied that he was certainly memorizing everything his little Ariadne dreamed about. Looking at the girl, Layla wondered if this was her little sister that the people of the manor were whispering so much about. Ariadne noticed the peeping Layla. She grinned gloatingly and motioned for her father to move on. The place smelled so foul she couldn't take it anymore. The Baron agreed and said that they would return to the manor then. Layla had lived in the filthy barn for 10 years before that day, but she was going to spend as much time in that hut. Layla didn't understand why she had to live like this, if it was because she was a witch cursed with a stench. It wasn't her fault she'd been born this way. She tried to remember what her grandfather had said there. Only by overcoming the trials sent by God can one find happiness. It was only by believing in those words that Layla had been able to survive here for so many years. However, she can no longer wait for that happiness. At that moment, there was a sound outside the door. Layla didn't realize what the sound was. Thanks to her sister Ariadne's efforts, she is known as the Cursed Witch, so this God-forsaken hut is not even approached. She wondered who it was. Maybe even God had decided to mock her. Otherwise, why would anyone come here? Layla declared that if there really is a God, there is only one thing I want. She begs to be sent someone who will ruthlessly deliver her from this fate. When Layla opened the door to the hut, a man presented himself in front of her. Layla can't remember the last time she stood so close to another human being. It's the first time she's ever seen someone else's face so clearly. Even when her father visited her once a year, she never got to see his features accurately during the conversation, because he kept her out. Suddenly, the guy standing in front of the door smiled and thanked the lady for opening. He said he was out hunting, but was lost in the rain, and asked if he could rest at her place. Layla wondered what she should do. She had been told to be careful around strangers. She had rushed to the entrance in vain. She wondered if he was really on the hunt, if she could believe it. He didn't seem to look like an outlaw, but plotting to rob a rotten shack somehow. The guy started begging her and added that he would give her a good reward. The guy asked her to wait and took out 1 gold coin and clarified if it would be enough. Layla was shocked but replied that no payment was needed and told him to just pass. The guy was amazed that no payment was needed. Layla took the candlestick and told him not to come any closer. If he obeyed, she would allow him to stay in her house for a while. He would rest here and then leave. The boy raised his hands in agreement. After all, this was the girl's domain. Layla noted that he's acting submissive, but she's not sure if he really has other intentions. To be honest, she wants to kick him out right now. However, it's raining so hard outside. There's no telling what might happen. It's only out of pity that she'll let him stay here for a bit. Layla states to sit down first. The boy said he was listening and sat down in a chair. He asked if it was a little dark and offered to turn on the light. Layla announced that the oil had run out, to which the boy clarified. His gaze settled on the girl's hands holding the candlestick. They were trembling. The guy smiled and said that he often encountered such things and that he should have stocked up on them, but that not many people did. Layla asked him what he meant by that. She knew that something was wrong, because the smell of the place should hardly make it possible to breathe. So why was he laughing like nothing had happened? It's like nothing bothers him at all. The guy stated that if she didn't want the money. Layla asked him to stop and tell her what he was doing, because if he moved, she would break his head with it. What she saw amazed her. The boy thanked her, claiming that it was enough that he had already been rescued. He didn't expect a meal, so to be honest, he didn't think his beef jerky was enough as a thank you for everything. It was the beef that he showed Layla. He added that if there was anything else she needed, she could just say so. Layla replied that no, nothing. She didn't understand why he sounded like he would fulfill any request. So strange. Suddenly, the guy asked who she was. Layla got nervous and asked why he wanted to know. He shared that he would like to know who his savior was. Layla was all over him about who she was, not the name, or that's what he implied. The guy added that since he would be spending some time here, wouldn't it be easier if he had the option to call the girl by her name? She replied that her name was Layla, and the guy responded by saying that he was Baste. However, the girl stated that she didn't ask him. She kept thinking about what he was really after, his manner of speech as strange as his outfit. She reflected that she thought she had heard it somewhere. Baste suddenly called the girl by name, to which she replied that she had told him to sit quietly. Baste asked to see, for her soup had run away. He asked her what she was cooking, for he would have liked to say that it smelled good, but he could not smell it. This amazed the girl, and she asked him if he really couldn't smell. The girl wondered if this was also some kind of God's test. She mentally asked her grandfather what she should do. When she was a little girl, she told her grandfather that she wanted to die. Although he had the disadvantage of being a constant drinker, he taught Layla a lot of things. Little things like how to be polite to your elders. If you bathe in cold water, you can get sick. Even though she lived in a barn and faced only scorn because of the smell, her grandfather, though he crooked his face, didn't mock her or ignore her. He was one of the few people who knew that Layla was the Baron's daughter. One day he asked her if she wanted him to tell her one important thing. Layla answered in the affirmative. Grandpa said that God does not forgive those who cut their lives short. If you do that, you will have to pay for it in the next life. Layla was shocked and clarified that it was some kind of stupid joke. Her grandfather called her silly and pointed out that God would hear and get angry. Layla replied by asking whether it was possible to call it a life to be at peace with unceasing cruelty and not to die only because of fear for the next existence. She stated that she didn't understand much, but she thought so. Layla suggested that Grandpa would probably say she was stupid again. He asked the girl if she could smell her own body odor, to which she replied in the affirmative. He wondered if that might be God's plan. Layla asked why, if he had made her stink. Grandpa pointed out that he wanted to say that every life has a price, and he was sure that smell was coming from her for a reason. If she can get over it, it will go away. Looking at Baiste, she wondered if his words were a lie. He really had no sense of smell. Did he see her as a completely ordinary person? Layla asked him if it was true, how it happened. Baiste answered that it was because he had fallen off a horse as a child, and because of the injury he could not smell at all. The girl noted that it looks like an injury. Because of the acrid stench emanating from her body, she is unable to perceive any odors. She will never be able to smell the aroma of a burning fire or the freshness of nature after a rainstorm. Baiste shared that he wished he could savor the aroma of her delicious dish. Layla replied that it was simple cabbage soup. She pointed out that so what if he had no sense of smell? It didn't change anything. He's only here because he needed a place to stay. Abruptly, Baiste began to make some strange noises. Layla wondered if he had pretended not to smell anything. Baiste replied that he'd been too careless before he'd found her hut, so he'd been injured, and apparently his wound had opened. Layla asked if he had hurt himself. Baiste responded positively and added that when the rain was over, he would go back to his place and treat the wound. Layla noted that she knew perfectly well, expressing the look that darkened the faces of people in her presence. Disgust and contempt. Could she confuse it with anything else? There was no point in thinking about it now, though. Layla said that as soon as the rain stopped, Baiste should leave. Baiste agreed, but he immediately felt sick again. He mentally stated that he can't. It's too soon. This girl isn't ready. He can't taste her right now. Baiste was eating at Baron Valencia's house. The Baron asked him if there was anything he did not like. Baiste replied to the Baron that the food was impeccable, to which Valencia replied that he was flattering him. Beast noted that a good cook was a boon and a credit to the host. He realized this after tasting only one dish. The Baron stated that he was so embarrassed and addressed Beast as His Highness the Crown Prince. Beast decided to share with his nobility that he was waiting in the forest yesterday and happened to come across a cabin and asked if by any chance the Baron knew who lived there. The Baron pretended that he didn't know and clarified if there was such a person in the forest. Beast replied that yes, the hut was very old, but it stood there, whereupon he inquired if they did not own the forest. Baron Valencia awkwardly replied that yes, that's right, they own the forest. However, he cannot know everything about it, as the territory is very large. Baiste also noticed that the forest was really big. He started to hunt in the north of the forest, but when he came out, he was already at the southern part of the estate. The Baron agreed with him. Baiste added about the hut, that someone obviously lived there. Suddenly the Baron's daughter entered the conversation. She stated that she had tried to keep quiet, but she didn't think she could hide it any further. The Baron wanted to stop his daughter. Beast clarified if it was true that the lady's name was Ariadne. The girl confirmed that it was. Beast stated that he was so interested in what the girl would tell him and asked her to continue. Ariadne said that in truth there was a witch living in that hut, a very frightening woman who cursed people to death. And what a terrible odour she gives off. You can smell it from the other side of the hill. Even with the power of the royal family, which represents God, there is no way to deal with such an odour. She added that if anything happens to His Highness in their territory, they will be very guilty for not helping him. Therefore, she asks him to stay away from the cabin. Beiste replied that he understood perfectly well that the lady was worried about the imperial family. What a pity, however, that the wildlife in the forest remains only to be watched. He clarified that if the girl said so, wasn't it better to avoid on principle? Ariadne agreed, noting that since the prince said so, it would be because of the stench anyway. Beiste honestly didn't understand what kind of war we were talking about. If he had been able to smell its scent, he wouldn't have been able to say so. When he had smelled that wonderful odour, his nose had accidentally listened to it, and his feet had already carried him to its source. The light scent of flowers, though no, it wasn't just the scent of colour. No plant smelled so enticing. It was as if the scent had awakened all his dormant instincts, as if it resurrected the wildness that had waned in him. It was as if it had made Beiste into a rutting animal. He admits that cabbage soup was disgusting, a dish made of just one vegetable. You couldn't call it cooking. He remembers that Layla was holding a candle holder. Candles were an expensive thing, and only the Baron and some rich trades could afford them here. He noted that such a thing existed in such a dilapidated cottage. He was certainly sure that Layla had something to do with the Baron. Bis noticed Ariadne looking at him and smiled back at her, which pleased the girl. But mentally, he thought about the fact that it was such a pity, and he wished Layla was here instead. Ariadne and Beiste walked together down the corridor. The prince called the Baron a low-grade aristocrat, who even manipulates like that. The Baron, a couple moments later, stated that his servant looked tired, and he let him go to rest. So his daughter can escort the prince, knows the manor well. Beiste noted that if money were at stake, his servant would be happy to buy the trick, even sell his soul. He replied that it was better than going into her bedroom in his underwear, or he would have bitten her to death. Suddenly Adriana tripped and started to fall, landing right on top of the prince. She apologized to His Highness, noting that she had simply stumbled. Beiste clarified that she was okay. The girl noted that he had caught her and thanked him. Beiste thought about how she had grown up in the love of her foolish parents. Such looks are not uncommon in the capital, but here she takes every advantage she can from it, and the adults who made it possible have always been there for her. He realizes she looks like Layla, so he'll be lenient with her. However, he was not going to encourage this cocky behaviour. Ariadne announced to His Highness that she would escort him to her room. Unexpectedly, Beiste replied that he would prefer the girl to die. Ariadne was shocked. The prince shared that he had already memorized the structure of the manor and knew how to get to his room. The girl wanted to contradict him, but he wished her good night in a serious tone. Ariadne continued to call for His Highness, but Beiste swiftly walked away from her. He did not initially like the idea. The woman, the Baron, the estate. He needs that scent. Beiste burst into the room and turned to his assistant Suri. Suri wondered if it was already over. He shared that he wanted to light the fireplace before the Crown Prince arrived, and went back to his room. Beiste noted that he didn't think Suri dreamed of becoming a vagrant anytime soon. Suri didn't understand what His Highness was referring to. When His Highness becomes an emperor, then Suri's dream of becoming the best chamberlain of the imperial family, able to support Beiste with all his heart, would come true. Beiste asked him how much he had received, to which Suri replied that he had received 500 shillings. Beiste clarified if that was all, to which Suri replied that they said they would give the same amount more if things worked out, but that wasn't going to happen, so only 500. The prince summarized that he was an old man in a guy's body, and Suri agreed. He shared with Suri that there is a hut in the forest, and Suri needs to find out about the witch who lives there. Suri clarified with the prince, wondering if he had been there today. The prince confirmed his words, noting that the girl's name was Layla. Suri wondered that whatever the rumors were, after all they didn't need to get close to her. What if it was a witch and could really curse? Bist ordered her full name, where she was from, who her parents were, what she does, since when she's been there, why they call her a witch, her favorite foods, her color, what size clothes she wears, that sort of thing. Anything he could track down. Suri accepted the order, adding that with that kind of influence, she might turn out to be a great mage, so he would find out everything. The prince also ordered candles and a horse to be prepared in the morning. Suri decided to clarify why the prince suddenly needed candles. Bist turned to him and clarified that if he sold it, he would find another servant. He would shut up. Suri bowed in response and stated that it would be ready tomorrow morning. He also added His Highness would go prepare the bath. It's been 100 years since they abolished the witch hunt, and nothing's changed. You can see how Layla has been treated all her life. Even Suri from the capital also reacted to the witch. The village people were no better. He summarized that she was probably rejected by everyone. She was treated like a witch, cursed by a demon. And her parents probably abandoned her, so she lived in one isolated hut. So she acted like an abandoned and frightened kitten. He thinks that Layla's past is very unhappy. Layla sat at the table and looked at a single gold coin. She wondered what was on Baiste's mind. He'd left her money even when she'd said she didn't need it. She wondered if this was a man sent by God to mess with her. God had purposely sent someone who had no sense of smell to laugh as he waited for his return. Baiste got up from the table and, noting that the rain had calmed down a bit, said he had to go. Layla wished him a good journey. Suddenly, Baiste turned to the girl and said that they would see each other again. After that, he left the cabin. She thinks he definitely said it out of politeness, just like her grandfather. Reaching up, she pulled off the top of her dress. She walked out of the hut and headed for the pond beside it. The water was cold, but she was not surprised. She told herself to be patient, for if she washed more often, she might not smell so bad. She thought of that money, noting that she could buy not a candle, but at least enough oil for the lamp and enough for meat for the first time in a month. The problem was that she would have to go to the market herself. She thought of Baiste. Unlike the others, he did not mock her. On the contrary, he thanked her and even gave her money and was not afraid of her. Layla threw on her cloak and went from the hut to the town. People did not understand what that smell was, whether someone had something rotten. No one understood what the stench was. It was the first time people had ever felt such a stench in their 40 years of life. Some of them had never experienced it in their 50s. Someone said her nose was going to fall off. Layla tried to hide under her hood as much as possible. She spotted a butcher shop. He mentally stated to himself that he could do it. She just needed to ask for meat. The money Bist gave her should be enough. She also remembered to tell him to keep the change. She realized that she needed to finish up quickly and get back to the hut. Approaching the man, she asked for pork, 1 pound. The man asked the girl which part, to which she replied that any part. The man continued to ask how he was going to use the meat, what he was going to cook, pie, soup, or just fry it. He added that pork steaks are so popular right now, and then it got to him, and he asked what the smell was. Layla wondered what she should do. Run away. After all, if she ran to the other butcher now, she would quickly take it, cry, and leave. Then a woman appeared nearby and asked the butcher if he had a turkey. The butcher was very happy to see the woman and told her that a big piece had been brought in today. However, he asked the woman to wait a bit. First he would serve Layla and clarified again, one portion of which part of the pork she wanted. The girl replied that she needed it for the soup. Layla thought about how embarrassed she was that he had just answered the first thing that came to mind. A woman nearby smelled a stench and asked what the rotten smell was, if the butcher was selling spoiled meat. The man did not understand what the woman was saying. She replied that she could smell the rotten odor right there. She turned around and stated that she would go somewhere else. The man asked her to wait and noted that Ha was bad luck. He did not understand where the stench was coming from and turned to Layla and asked her if it was her. He asked indignantly why someone like her was wandering around the market. She didn't have any money. Did she really want to take the meat and run away? He ordered her to get away from his shop now. Layla realized it was a stupid plan. She wouldn't have time to buy anything before people started smelling that odor. The man pushed her and stated for her to get out. Layla fell to the ground and the man spat on her hand. He thought she was some kind of beggar, and then he realized it couldn't be a witch. Immediately, a lot of people started gathering around. The man noted that it was definitely her, the dull blonde hair and the ugly look and the stench. Everyone started shouting that the witch was here. She had come to curse them. The man fell to the ground, apologized, and started begging her not to curse him. Layla noted that this was nothing new. Everyone was running away, and no one thought to offer a helping hand. Layla stated for him to give her the meat she was going to buy. The man immediately rushed to the shop and told her to take everything, but not to curse. Layla clarified how much. The man replied that no money was needed. The girl shouted back that she was not a thief, and the man replied that it was 2 shillings. After giving him the money, she told him to keep the change. The man apologized again for being rude to her. Layla left and said that if he felt guilty, he could just die. Back at the hut, Layla saw Beister. He flew up to her and asked her if she was crying. On the first day in the hut, Layla could not sleep. She could not see anything because of the darkness of the forest. Thunder sounded to her like a punishment. And then she realized that everything that was happening to her before and now, only she herself could deal with it. Someone to worry when she was in pain, someone to sympathize with her suffering. Doesn't yell that she's dirty and talk to her while holding her hand. It's times like this that she really understands that it's the man who doesn't smell. She didn't realize. So what? Layla sharply pushes Beist away, saying he can't save her. Beister didn't understand what she meant, to which the girl said that she didn't live in a filthy ditch. She was the source of that filth. In response, Beister was silent and remarked that the girl was probably tired for today, so let her rest and he would be back tomorrow. After that, he left. Layla didn't understand why he was trying to see her. Her grandfather felt sorry for her, so Beister felt sorry for her too. Beister offered to go with him. He would get her out of the damn ditch. She mentally turned to her grandfather, for she didn't know what to do. Beister, as promised, came back to her the next day and said hello. He sat down across from Layla and smiled sweetly at her. Layla was the first to speak, saying that there were too many of them. Beister didn't understand her. The girl reminded him that her favor from yesterday wasn't worth the candles she'd given. Beister agreed that of course it was too much. Layla notes that she will accept that gratitude, but she will also thank him in return. She wants to repay him too and asks him to tell her what he wants. Beister agrees and states that he wants the girl. In the next moment, we see the people of the town coming to the Baron, declaring to him that this is too cruel. The Baron asked everyone to calm down. The very butcher asked him how they could be calm. After all, they are now living in fear because of the witch. She was in the township yesterday. The Baron was shocked. People confirmed and added that this is why everyone scattered to their homes yesterday. The butcher shared that in addition she bought merchandise from him, and now everyone thinks his store is cursed. The Baron noted that this is unfortunate. Layla was supposed to be living quietly in the forest. Why is she making things so complicated? Is this revenge for them not sending her the things she needs? Everyone was getting so worked up over her. The Baron wondered how they dared to crowd in front of his house like this, ignoring his status. He didn't understand what he should do in such a situation. The Baron asked if he was keeping quiet because the rumors were true. One of the men shared that the guard at the gate, Alex, said that a witch had come to the Baron's house, and she claimed to be his daughter. There was an uproar in the crowd as to whether it was true, whether it meant that this was why the Baron was delaying her banishment. Someone added that this rumor had been floating around for a long time. The Baron mentally thought that this was unacceptable. If it turns out she is his daughter, people can leave his territories. If that happens, there will be no one to collect taxes from. Suddenly, Ariadne addressed the crowd. She stated that she was truly sorry and wanted to apologize to them first. The girl sat down on her knees. She added that they thought they had done everything they could to keep the witch from coming to the settlement, but they had not expected such a thing. She was sorry that they could not have prevented such an unexpected act. And when the witch came to their estate, They were ashamed to remember such a small thing. She suggests that maybe the witch's mind has gone blank. Butcher clarified if that wasn't very dangerous. Ariadne stated that yes, they would likely make a decision soon. She shared that they say there are strong mages in the capital that are not affected by her power. They are thinking of hiring them, then they will drive the witch away. It will cost them a lot, but for the sake of peace in their lands, they will sacrifice what is necessary. All the townspeople blossomed, and the Baron's daughter offered to go home. The townspeople agreed, because Miss had taken such good care of them. Now they had nothing to worry about. After they left, Ariadne stated that it was impossible. She thought it was necessary to get rid of Layla. The Baron clarified with his daughter if she was really going to do that. Ariadne asked her father what else was left to do. She had been saying that for 20 years. The Baron reminded his daughter that she was her older sister after all, and the girl responded by asking who would wish for such a sister. Certainly not her. She doesn't even consider having a sister. He clarified if she really wanted to hire a mage. They don't have that much money, and even if they did. Ariadne said that she knew they didn't have enough money for such an expense. She added that she had obviously said that to get people to leave. The Baron was glad that an excuse could be found for people. For example, she could curse anyone, so no matter how much money was offered, there would be no suitable mage willing to come. Ariadne noted that she would have to do it someday. When the men had surrounded and questioned the Baron, he had been afraid they would reveal him, but now he was throwing sweat from fear. At the thought that Ariadne might actually kill Layla, his Ariadne, his flesh, his second daughter, who had always been so beautiful. However, she has been an unusual child since childhood, slowly revealing her cruel side. In front of people, she pretends to be a kind and beautiful lady, but the Baron is afraid that she might suddenly change, even though she is his daughter. The Baron's servant turns to him and informs him that the prince's servant is looking for him. The shocked Baron clarified if it was true. Suri confirmed, saying that apparently the crown prince was considering Baron Valencia's daughter as a bride. The Baron clarified whether His Highness had said it himself or his servant's assumption. Suri replied that the prince had told him that personally. The Baron made a slightly happy face, mentally not understanding why all of a sudden. He didn't expect this at all. His daughter is the crown prince's wife. He began to wonder if he would then become his son-in-law, the future emperor's son-in-law, and his daughter would become the empress. Suri asked if his daughter needed time to pack. The Baron didn't understand what kind of things he was talking about. Suri added that His Highness the Prince wanted to personally bring Ariadne to the imperial palace, so he was interested in how much time it would take. The Baron glowingly stated that they couldn't keep his combing waiting, so she would quickly get ready. Suri favoured them, after which he hesitated. The Baron clarified whether the prince's servant wanted to convey something else. Suri remembered that the Baron had just promised something. The Baron didn't know what he was talking about, but Ariadne pretended that her father had told her to take care of it beforehand. The girl held out the pouch, noting that it contained a little more than they had promised. She would ask to take it. Suri noted that it wasn't necessary, but he would find a good use for them. He also added that he asked to be ready the day after tomorrow. The Baron also clarified if the prince had said what he wanted for dinner and any specific requests. Suri hesitated and replied that the prince already had plans for tonight. The Baron inquired who he had plans with. Suri laughed and replied that it was his private life. Bist pointed to a plate and asked what it was. Layla reminded him that he had asked that she repay him with dinner. He clarified whether it was an appetizer. Layla indignantly confirmed what he'd said. Biste clarified if it was correct that the main course, steak, would be afterward. Layla didn't understand what he was talking about. The prince thought about the fact that he said he wanted dinner in return for the candles, but it seemed he was expecting too much. Maybe he should think of something else. Layla fidgeted and chewed on her finger, as she couldn't understand what he was talking about. Basti called out to the girl and noted that she was bleeding. Suddenly he appeared behind her. The girl was puzzled as to how he ended up behind her. Basti inquired as to whether to heal her. Layla didn't understand what he meant, and Basti clarified that he meant with spit. The girl was terribly embarrassed. yet Baiste did as he wished. Layla felt that it was strange when his tongue touched her. A shiver ran through the girl's whole body. However, she was not disgusted. Baiste turned to the girl and stated that he wanted to change the request and asked for her permission. Layla clarified if he really wants to change to something else, and if she can't fulfill it. Baiste stated that yes, he wanted to change to something easier. Layla clarified exactly what it was for. He stated that they needed to go outside first, and lifted the girl out of the chair. Layla asked him where they were going. Baiste apologized to the girl and asked if he was going fast. Layla answered that no, she asked if they had a long way to go. She didn't understand what she could do for him in such a place. Baiste replied that it would be boring if he said it right away, so he would keep quiet for now. Layla wondered if it would be something fun. Baiste noted that there wasn't much left to go, so he asked the girl not to worry. She didn't know what to think. She wondered if the fact that he lied meant it would be easier. Baiste alerted the girl when they reached. A lovely field of flowers opened up in front of them. Layla was amazed. Baiste shared that he had found one place while hunting and wanted to show it to the girl. Layla noted that there were so many colours. Something caught her eye, and Baiste asked her what it was. Layla was shocked that the flowers had such a strong scent. It directly filled her chest. Baiste chuckled, noting that it was a funny expression. Baiste mentally noted that he couldn't even smell the scent of the flowers right now because of Layla's body odour. No matter how much he drinks, he will always be short. He wants the girl more and more, and even though he knows she will die because of his thirst, he wants to possess her completely. Layla asked to listen to him, and noted that with him, many things are happening for her for the first time, and it confuses her. However, it is surprising and gratifying. She just wanted to say that, and now she feels again that it's not her repaying him for the favour, but receiving it herself. So she would once again cook what he wanted, steak, or whatever he said. She added so now they would walk back. Suri clarified to the prince, did he really consider this woman as a bride? Suri sincerely did not understand him. To resist His Majesty's restrictions, Baiste needs to choose someone from an influential family in the capital rather than the family of a provincial baron. Suri clarified that it might not be too late to change his mind and return to the palace soon. But he immediately noticed something and asked His Highness if he was listening to him. Baiste looked at the flowers in the vase with the desire to trample them. He wants to take everything and tear it apart mercilessly. He wants to bite Layla from head to toe and make her his. Honestly, the animal desire in Baiste grows in him, and he decides that's why it's time to go after his prey. Baiste turned to Suri to go and betray his words to the baron. The next day, Layla tried to catch a rabbit, but it ran away, and the girl cursed that she had missed again. The girl swore at the baron's men, for what could she catch with this old stuff? If they decided they weren't going to provide her with food, they'd give her something better to hunt with. Layla picked up the stick and looked at the trap, wondering if it had broken. However, when she touched it with the stick, it snapped, which startled her, and she summarized that it didn't seem to be broken. Layla started trying to pull her wand out of the snare. Layla was holding some kind of note in her hand. After a little while, she angrily noted that it wasn't like she couldn't read. Layla got angry and decided to give a damn about the stupid steak. She didn't know what she was doing, why she wanted to pay him back. She thinks she's been weird since she met him. She remembered that he liked steaks and decided to go catch game with a trap she'd never used. And when he treats her wound, Layla cursed and noted that there was no other reason. She just still hadn't repaid him. She urged herself not to overthink it. The Baron and Ariadne stood at the exit of the manor, and the Baron shockingly clarified what the prince's servant had just told him. His daughter, who will become the prince's wife, is not Ariadne. Baron noted that Suri said that his daughter will become the prince's bride, but it's not Ariadne, and Baron doesn't understand. Mentally, the Baron wondered if he wasn't joking. Then what did it mean? And the Baron noted that the prince wasn't here either. Naturally, he thought Baiste would take Ariadne away in his carriage, so he hadn't prepared them. Suri replied that he didn't misspoke when he said that the crown prince wants to take the Baron's daughter to the imperial palace. He's only saying that this daughter is not Lady Ariadne. The Baron was outraged. How could it not be her, Does he mean to say that the Baron has a daughter that he does not know about? And then it came to the Baron. However, he doesn't understand how he knows of her existence. Suri stated that there are no secrets from the imperial family. Ariadne shouted that this was impossible. Suri replied that maybe they wanted their eldest daughter, Miss Layla, too. The Baron asked in horror if they would make her the Crown Prince's bride. Suri confirmed his words and added that he would escort her. Ariadne cried out that it was unthinkable, however. Suri repeated that it was true. Ariadne asked indignantly how it could be when the Crown Prince had seen her. Suri replied that Beister had said that he'd found her in a cabin in the woods while he was out hunting. Ariadne stated that even if that was the case, how could it be possible? The Baron didn't understand how he could do that. After all, the Baron had introduced his daughter to them and even gave them money. Suri confirmed it. The Baron was indignant because they had paid him as a thank you for his successful cooperation. Suri clarified, "Isn't it a success because the Baron's daughter will go to the imperial palace as a candidate for the prince's bride?" The Baron asked him what she was saying, for he was talking about Ariadne. Suri clarified if the Baron is saying that Miss Layla is not his daughter. The Baron mentally noted that Suri was right about everything. He couldn't contradict him, even though she is an abandoned daughter. Suri noted that since the Baron had two daughters, there must have been a misunderstanding, and shared that it was good that they understood each other, even if it was late. However, in any case, Miss Layla will not be able to leave today. Suri stated that he is giving them one more day. He is expecting them tomorrow at the same time, at the same place. He will meet the Baron's daughter, who was supposed to be here today. Ariadne was breaking dishes in the house, screaming that it was not her. The girl was asked to calm down. However, the girl screamed that here was calm for them. The Baron noted that of course it was hard for her to calm down now. The girl was shocked that it wasn't her, but Layla, that stinker and princess. And she asked her father if she thought it was possible. The Baron said that of course not. He was of the same opinion as Ariadne. Only it is not up to him, and there is nothing to be done. Ariadne was terrified. There was really nothing that could be done. She asked her father if he wanted to tell her that he didn't care if Layla went to the palace, because she was his daughter too, as that servant had said. Because one way or another, the Baron's daughter will become a princess. The Baron replied that no, that's not it. Ariadne urges her father to wake up, because Layla is a witch. Didn't he realize that it would lead to the downfall of their family? The Baron clarified what Ariadne meant. The girl replied that she didn't know what that witch had done to the prince, but did the Baron think it would last? He believes that once the witchcraft is over, she will be overthrown. And what will become of their family, who spawned a witch who became a princess and tarnished the lineage of the imperial family? The Baron clarified, hadn't they been told they had to send Layla, they could only follow orders after all. Ariadne replied that she knew that an important member of the imperial family had made an unwise decision. The girl brought up the fact that they would inevitably become accomplices when the witch became a princess, and if they made a mistake, they would be traitors. The Baron asked his daughter what they should do then. Ariadne urged her father to wake up. She had it all figured out. The Baron clarified what she meant, to which the girl told him to gather all the villagers. Ariadne said it was time to do what they should have decided to do long ago, which was to hunt the witch. Layla would not take what Ariadne had gotten. The men with torches ran straight to Layla's hut. The girl was at this moment engaged in making soup and noticed the approaching fire. She realized that it seemed they had finally arrived. Layla was surprisingly calm. She noted that it was going to be hot. She had once been sent a picture book from home, and in it, a witch was burned alive. The girl wondered if it would hurt. She wanted to die a painless death, but she can't help it. This life is much more painful anyway. As she watched the soup simmering, she took stock of the fact that she wouldn't be able to eat in the end. Though she couldn't catch anything, she pulled out the leftover meat and boiled it, and it was all for nothing. In the moments of her probable death, she didn't understand why she was thinking of him. The crowd of people stopped, and Layla stepped out of the house, straight toward them. The butcher wondered if it was really going to be okay. Another man asked him what he was so worried about, to which the butcher replied that they weren't going to a witch. The same man added that the Baron had said that they would be saved by mages, so why should they? The butcher pointed out that they wouldn't come to their lands. But are there really no other ways? The other noted that right, and mages aren't that reliable. Even the priest doesn't know what to do, so the butcher was encouraged not to worry. After all, this witch is just a girl. The butcher still wasn't very sure. His interlocutor urged everyone to hurry up. The red-haired man turned to the witch as she stepped in front of them and stated that they had come to punish her. Layla urged them to leave. They could show later, so let them go. The men stated that was impossible, to which Layla asked why. The man replied that it was because the villagers had wanted it for a long time, so they could sleep peacefully. Layla pointed out that if they had done nothing for 21 years, couldn't they wait another day or two? The man was angry and stated that no, they couldn't take it anymore. Layla clarified that they couldn't tolerate. She actually wanted to know what exactly they had tolerated all this time. She bluntly asked them what exactly she had done to them. Had they ever seen her devour children? Had a child really gone missing in this area, or had someone died from her spells? Layla screamed. Did she really bring on deadly diseases? What the hell had she even done to them? The man replied that she is alive. She lives and stinks near them, so that's what she is guilty of. Layla replied that she thought so too. She understood, after all. How dare a stinking witch live? However, she still stated that not today. Let them come next time. She will be dead in a couple days. The man asked her what she was going to do. Would she drag her stinking carcass back to the village again? Or maybe she would go to the Baron's estate, still believing he was her father. Or maybe he wouldn't give her a penny, because the Baron had made up his mind. Layla didn't know what he was talking about. The man replied that they said that the Baron had finally given permission to massacre her. The girl didn't understand how it was to straighten her out. Did he really say to kill her? I wonder what kind of face the father had when he ordered his own daughter to be killed. As much as she thinks about it, she can't imagine, probably because she hasn't seen him in a long time. The man shouted that it was time, and they would fight back against her. They would kill the witch. Layla dodged the first torch, and the man shouted that she was a real witch, afraid of fire. They grabbed the girl and said they would burn the witch at the stake. Layla screamed loudly to be let go. Then a roar was heard. The men started to turn around as they did not understand what was happening. A large black cat appeared in front of them. No one realized what it was. Someone called it rabid, but no one understood where it suddenly appeared from. It is very huge. As a child, a man was frightened by a bear in the forest, but this one has completely different dimensions. Could it be that this enormous thing lived here? Layla continued to break free and screamed to be let go. The leader grabbed the girl and asked her if she was the one who had done it. He grabbed her by the throat, telling her how dare she use such dirty tricks. Layla was in pain and wondered if she was going to die like that. She doesn't even know if Beisty will come at all. The girl said his name quietly, and in the next moment, the beast threw itself right at the man who was holding Layla by the throat. The man flew off, and Layla squeezed her eyes shut hard. When she opened them, right in front of her stood this beast. She noted that it had golden eyes. The other men with torches shouted at the beast to leave, but it began to lunge at them. One of the men stated that she thought it was the girl who had summoned it with her witch magic. Layla also wondered what this creature was, for in the 10 years she had lived in this forest, she had never once seen this beast. The girl confidently asked the men if it wasn't obvious, and mentally stated that she didn't have to tell them the truth. The men ordered her to quickly chase him away, but the girl said she didn't want to, for she was in no position to honor their requests. The ringleader rose, angry. He called the witch evil, noting that he did not know when she had managed to summon it, but he was sure that if he killed the caster, the beast would immediately disappear. He prepared his sword, noting to pierce the witch's heart. Then he lunged straight at Layla. However, the moment he attacked, he was attacked by a beast. All the people were horrified by what they saw. The beast bloodily bit off part of the man's torso. Everyone immediately started running away in terror. One of the men threw a torch directly at the hut, and it immediately burst into flames. Layla looked at her burning house, saying she should put out the fire. But she thought that even if she put it out, she would still be living here. just as she had before. She noted that the man died, and those who ran away would blame it all on the witch. The witch, who lives in a hut in the woods, summoned a black beast and killed people. She wondered if they would leave her alone. She had always thought she was the dregs of society, but this time she was for sure. Layla realized that this was the end. She turned to the beast and wanted to say one thing, but asked it why it wasn't attacking her. She immediately felt that look was familiar to her for some reason, as if she had seen it somewhere. The house started to collapse because of the fire, and she shouted to the beast that it was dangerous to be here, but he had already disappeared. Layla didn't realize where he had gone. For the first time, with the exception of her grandfather, someone was on her side, and once again she was alone. Layla stayed near the house, and the next morning, Bist found her sitting once with the charred ruins. He took off his hood and asked the girl what happened, if there was a fire. He continued to ask her if she was hurt, if she was able to get out safely. Layla answered that she was not hurt, to which the guy replied that at least that was good. Be brah. He noted that apparently everything had burned to the ground, and there was nothing left. Layla remembered the soup she had made yesterday. Baiste clarified with her what was wrong. Maybe something was wrong. He noted that the girl must be upset that such a thing had happened to her house. Layla replied that she wasn't really. Bist clarified if the girl had a place to stay, but the girl remained silent, and the guy suggested that maybe she should go with him. He had already suggested that they go together. Layla indignantly asked why she should go with him. Bist pointed out that she had nowhere to go. Her house was completely burned down. Layla got angry and rushed away to the manor. She must go to the manor. What the people from the village said, it must be all lies. Baiste followed, asking the girl where she was going. Layla rushed with all her legs to the manor, but Baiste continued to follow right behind her, asking her where she was going. The girl told him not to follow her. Bist didn't understand why she was so stubborn. She had nowhere else to go, and it was better to go with him. Layla stopped and said that she would go home to her parents, to which Bist asked her if she had parents. He added that he would then make sure she got to them, and clarified if she was willing to do that. Layla simply walked on in silence. She realized that he probably had a lot of questions, but why didn't he ask them? Why doesn't Layla live with her parents, or why does she live in such a dilapidated shack? She urged herself to wake up and not get lost. Layla ran to the Baron's house. There stood a guard who immediately turned his attention to the witch. The girl declared that he should quickly call the Baron, to which the guard replied that it was impossible. The girl clarified, wondering if he hadn't heard the news. The guard was afraid of her and wondered if she would put a spell on the place. Layla asked him if he was afraid of her. The Baron ran to the gate and ordered the guard to wait. The Baron said that the witch wouldn't hurt him, so he would talk to her, but he wouldn't tell Ariadne about it. Layla stated to the guard that if he didn't want to die, let him disappear. The guard stated to the Baron that he would call the men and asked him to wait. Layla shared with her father that her house had burned down, so she would no longer be able to return to the cabin. The Baron responded to her news with one-word answers, as if he didn't care. She doesn't know if she wanted to know the truth. The girl seriously asked him if he ordered her killed, would he want her dead? The Baron remained silent. The girl realized that this truth had always been known to her, and she had tried to ignore it, but hearing it from the villagers. Just a moment ago, he had been afraid that everyone might find out about their kinship, but even as she watched him desperately making excuses, she didn't want to admit it. Tears streamed down Layla's face, and she declared that she wished she could too. Her father had abandoned her. Layla would have wished she was dead too. This shocked the Baron. After a moment, however, he cried out why, instead of dying, she had survived and come to the manor. Did Layla know how much her father had suffered because of her? People could find out she was his daughter, and then they wouldn't trade with their lands. Couldn't she just live there in peace? Then he wouldn't have had to make that decision. The Baron turned around and told her to live as quietly as if she were dead, and he would tell everyone that she was dead, and not to even think about coming here. Layla wondered if that was sadness. Though no, the sadness passed rather quickly. She no longer feels like her heart has been pierced. Now she just wants to rest. Baiste sat back in his chair and turned to the Baron and asked him if the prince had not told him that he wanted to make his daughter his wife. The Baron replied that yes, That's right. Bist clarified that Baron Valencia knew that, but dared to try to burn her alive. The Baron replied that he thought the prince wanted to marry his second daughter. The Crown Prince clarified, hadn't the Baron discussed it with his servant? The Baron agreed. But he immediately wondered what the strange feeling was. The Crown Prince didn't look the same as usual. The Baron stated that his daughter was simply born with a small problem, and he was only trying to fix it. Beister noted that he said he was trying to fix it, and asked him if the Baron had lost his mind. The Baron didn't understand what the prince was talking about. Beister clarified that if the Baron wasn't crazy, then how dare he deceive the Crown Prince? The Baron was very nervous. He didn't understand what the Crown Prince had just said. The Crown Prince treated him kindly, even though the Baron was not from such a noble family. Not at all what the Baron had expected from the rumours. Suddenly, Ariadne, who was wearing all black, entered the study. The girl sat down in front of her father and asked His Highness for his permission to finish for her father. They tried to free her from the curse, but in the end it didn't work out, and they were left without their property. They had no choice but to send her away from the estate. Ariadne is sure her sister understands them. If she were in their shoes, she would have done the same. The girl thinks that His Highness has already realized that it is better to marry a beautiful and kind wife than this rotten witch, that he has been deluded all this time. However, Bist turned to the girl and said that Ariadne was very talented at noodling. The girl was shocked. The Crown Prince stated that he thought for a second that it was not a man, but a snake sitting in front of him. He subtly wondered if their estate was too luxurious to lie about their poverty. Besides, the girl herself sits dressed in expensive dresses and jewellery. Ariadne wanted to justify herself to His Highness somehow. The prince stated that he was also asking why the Baron wanted to burn his bride alive, and he did not ask if she was a witch. Ariadne rose abruptly from her seat and declared that Layla was a witch. She added that they knew she was a witch, and being his loyal servants, they could not allow them to marry. Beast stated that it couldn't be. Not only did they dare to deceive the Crown Prince, but they also questioned his greatness. He hilariously asked them if they thought they were worthy to stand on the soil of the Empire after such a thing. The Baron fell to the floor and began to beg His Highness to forgive his delinquent daughter. Bist stated that he was revoking Valencia's status as Baron as of this moment. Valencia was horrified. He began to beg, to plead for mercy. Ariadne grabbed the Crown Prince's hand. Apologizing that he had misunderstood, she would explain. Biste asked her how dare she touch him with her filthy hands. Bist snatched the sword from Suri and cut off both of Ariadne's hands in one fell swoop. The Baron and the girl were horrified. The Baron's wife came running into the room and started screaming when she saw it. Biste turned to Suri and ordered him to burn Baron Valencia's estate for insulting the Crown Prince's future bride, completely. The Baron realized that this was a terrible nightmare, truly unimaginable, a nightmare they would never wake up from. Layla, meanwhile, stood almost waist-deep in water and thought that it would be nice to die in this place. She had lived here for over a decade, and this forest would be her grave. Today she would leave this hell. Layla fell into the water and began to sink to the bottom. However, Beisty appeared and abruptly lifted her out. He asked her what she was doing here. Did she really want to die and leave him? Layla got angry and shouted for Beisty to let her in. She stated that she was a witch, and he of course didn't know it. But she stinks horribly. That's why they call her the damned witch. That's why her house looks like this now, because they wanted to burn her alive. So she asks him to leave her alone, to stay away. Beisty turned to her and stated that she was not a witch, but a perfectly ordinary girl. He wouldn't say that though, because to him she was very nice. Layla stated that he was lying, to which Beisty replied that it wasn't him who was lying, but the villagers. He asked her how her smell had anything to do with her being a witch. Did she really eat children, as people say, or did she bring the plague here? Beisty pointed out that the girl had done none of those things, so she was called a witch just because of her smell. He added that the girl just doesn't fit this place. Kissing her hand, he asked her to come with him. Layla was shocked. Beisty asked her if she agreed, to which the girl replied that, okay, she would go with him. Beisty thanked her for agreeing. Looking at the carriage, she noted that he was indeed an aristocrat. Mentally, she added that even the Baron's estate has only one similar carriage, and he has two. But since he wears almost the same thing every day, she thought he was a poor aristocrat. Basti pointed out that although this carriage doesn't compare to the imperial carriage, it looks quite noble. He had just recently told Suri that he didn't want Layla to know he was a member of the aristocracy until they got to the palace, and his servant must have had a hard time of it. Suri looked out from behind the carriage and noted that they were here. He smiled sweetly and greeted Lady Layla, saying he had heard a lot about her. Bis noted that his servant had even changed his clothes. Suri began to cough, causing Layla to hide behind Bist. Suri did cough, and though he can't breathe through his nose, he noted that she was shy, just like he had heard. Suri turned to his master, noting that he would ride in the rear carriage. Bista addressed him respectfully, noting that as he wished. They wished each other a pleasant journey. Bista and Layla sat in the front carriage opposite each other. Bista noted that because they were in the woods, the road was a little rough, and once they got out of there, the carriage wouldn't shake. Layla was a little worried and held on to the side of her seat. Bista added that it would take about 3 hours, which shocked the girl. Layla didn't know that this forest was so big, and then she noticed a temple among the trees. Bist noted that if the girl had a wish, why not go there? He pointed out that if you pray hard enough, the wish might even come true. Layla asked if Bista believed in God. The boy hesitated and replied that who doesn't believe in God in this empire? Layla was silent and then stated that she knew. Bista mentally stated that no, she didn't know, and she didn't need to know. He abruptly grabbed her hand and moved her to his lap, while stating that the girl was so beautiful. Layla bluntly asked him why he was always telling her that she was sweet, beautiful. Basta replied that it was because she was really sweet and beautiful. The girl concluded that he was onto something. Basta responded by tucking her hair behind her ear. Layla asks him seriously if he wants to sell her to some witch. He conspired with a witch who wants to sacrifice Layla to become more powerful. She told Basta that if he brings a living witch, she will grant his wish, and he will wish to take over the empire. Basta laughed at this and stated that it sounded interesting. However, it was not what he wished for. There was fighting going on in the continent. The war had lasted too long, and people were losing hope. Suddenly, like a comet in the night sky, Onlayan I appeared. He called himself a messenger of the god. By unknown forces ended the war and united the continent. That's how the Onlayan Empire came into being. The first imperator ruled by godlike power, and no one dared to oppose him. And even now, 60 years later, that power is still unshakable. Basti didn't understand why he would wish to take possession of the empire. He lifted Layla's chin and stated that his wish was to take possession of it. After saying that, he hugged the girl. He believes that she should not know anything because he will get his wish with her help. The next moment, we see Basti sitting at the table and Layla abruptly bursting in on him. She tells him to explain properly what he is trying to accomplish and where they are. They have arrived at a luxurious castle. As soon as Layla stepped out of the carriage, Bist lifted her into his arms. Then a strange girl named Cecil took her away, and an insanely huge room awaited her. Layla stated to Bist that this girl had been peeking while she was washing. This made the prince laugh, and he added that she was just serving her, not peeping. He noted that servants always accompanied aristocrats, so let her not be angry with Cecil. The girl wondered if aristocrats liked such strange things. Basta clarified if the girl could sit down first. He wanted to hear her voice up close. The girl sat down to his right. Basta reminded her that, as he had said, this was the imperial palace, and he was the first heir to the throne, Crown Prince Basti Blackdion Layan. Layla replied that if she had known that, she wouldn't have gone with him. The prince clarified in her why, to which the girl replied that it was because he was rumoured to be a cold schemer, an arrogant and cruel assassin. Mentally, she added that she hadn't heard anything else, but the word assassin was enough. Basta asked the girl pitifully if she really thought he was like that. However, Layla said that no, he wasn't like that. He was kind and really shouldn't believe any rumours. Basta thanked the girl for saying that. He hoped that she would continue to live here in comfort. Layla remembered something and asked him why there is always warm water here. Is there such a thing anywhere else? Baista shared that no, only in the Crown Prince's palace. What she saw was magic. It's very convenient. Magic can make water warm without wasting energy to heat it, and it can even make the wind blow. It's certainly not a God-given gift, but it can even heal people. So far, magic isn't widespread, but Beist thinks that when people learn of its benefits, they'll like it. Layla thought for a moment and replied that she didn't know, but magic was amazing, and she thought his expectations would come true. Beister noted that her words gave him strength. He picked up the girl's hair with his hand and noted that she was especially beautiful today. The girl was embarrassed and thought of something she knew better than anyone that was a lie. The more Beisty talks, the more she thinks she's becoming a beautiful lady like Ariadne. She doesn't know why her heart is beating so fast. Already in her pajamas, Layla stood at the window. Cecil came up to her and informed her that everything was ready and she could go to bed. Layla turned and asked if she smelled, to which Cecil replied that if she asked, of course she did. Layla seriously asks her why she pretends the girl doesn't stink, to which Cecil replies that she's not pretending. However, Layla thinks she's lying, because she's never once insulted her or called her a witch. Cecil asks if the girl has ever experienced such a thing. She added that of course the mistress smelled bad, but she was already aware of everything thanks to the prince, and just wanted to do her job, looking after Layla. Layla really didn't understand the word babysitting. Is she really a child? Cecil asked her not to misunderstand. It's just that her family has been looking after hereditary princes for generations, and it's her duty since birth. She also clarified if the mistress had any questions. Layla was silent at first, and then stated for Cecil to leave. Cecil didn't understand her, to which the girl shouted for her to leave as Layla wanted to be alone. Suri looked after Layla and Cecil. After a while he came to the prince. Bist asked him how Layla was. Suri replied that he waited until the girl fell asleep. The crown prince then stated that he was ready to hear the report then. The young man began to tell him that as soon as the prince left the baron's territory, His Majesty had urgently made an appointment. He was now in a small northern town. The young man noted that His Majesty had not given an exact date, but a letter had arrived a couple days ago that preparations were underway for his return to the palace. According to the plan, Baiste should arrive in a week. The prince exhaled irritably, noting that it was so far north. The young man added that His Majesty had said that the goal was to develop the northern territories and promote tourism. Baiste wondered if his father hadn't sent him to the Baron himself, and now he was telling him to leave. Also in this body, so far north, Baiste doesn't know what he's up to. Suri entered the conversation and said that His Majesty was trying to trick Baiste. Even though he had given him authority, he still had to participate in the assembly and make decisions. He summarized that isn't His Majesty enjoying his power without taking responsibility for his actions. Bist ordered Suri to be silent, to which the boy apologized. Here, the young man who was narrating the report alerted His Highness that His Majesty had gone with the Holy Father this time. This shocked Baiste. He wondered what happened to the Holy Father who never left the temple, justifying himself by saying that he wanted to be closer to God. He didn't understand what they were conspiring about while he was away from the palace. The next day came. Cecil knocked on Layla's room, and after apologizing, said she was coming in. She pointed out that if the girl didn't want to be late for the meal, she should be quicker. Just then, Cecil noticed that Mistress was nowhere to be seen. She wondered if she had escaped, then should she alert the prince's guards? She wondered if His Highness would find out. Last night, Layla wondered if Cecil had told her that he would put up with her stench to take care of her. However, for the girl it is ridiculous, because sooner or later Cecil will cover her with insults. Layla grabbed her head, noting that so much had happened today. She was tired. Turning around, she looked at the bed. It wasn't the first time Layla had seen it, but it still seemed too big for her. And not just the bed, everything in her room is big. The girl can't relax. That's when she noticed the closet and ran to it. Sitting down in it, she swept it up. Just like that. This place suits her. Layla woke up to Cecil opening the closet and calling for Mistress to wake up. Cecil asked her why she was sleeping in such a place. Layla didn't know what to answer. Cecil noted that His Highness was waiting for Layla and suggested that she wash and get ready. Layla was dumbfounded and asked Cecil if she was going to peep on her again, to which the servant replied that it wasn't like that at all. Layla was eating her food very quickly at the table with Baiste. Suri noted that just like yesterday, the girl was eating sloppily, or rather she was just gorging herself. However, it was not surprising since no one had trained her. Baiste called the girl over and stated that she looked beautiful today. Suri still can't get used to His Highness being so kind. Bist asked the girl to wait. She had food on her face. Bist picked up a crumb with his finger and ate it himself. Layla embarrassedly stated that if he was hungry, let him eat his food, to which Bist agreed he would. He asked Layla to eat too before it got cold. Layla remained silent, but noted that she had finally calmed down yesterday, but her heart was beating again. Especially when looking at Baiste, her heart beats harder and harder. The girl decided to clarify whether she should call Bist His Highness Crown Prince, Heir, or Lord. Baiste replied that the first option was fine. Layla addressed His Highness the Crown Prince, first on the first name, but then she stopped herself and spoke to him on the first name. Bist clarified if it bothered the girl now. Layla replied that now she knew who he was, so she would try to be polite. She added that she was certainly not like the other aristocrats, but she had been taught some things. Bista replied that he understood and asked the girl not to be angry. The prince himself thought about the fact that she must have been taught by the old stable boy, the only one who cared for her in the whole estate. Baiste knows that he is officially retired. However, he heard that the baron's other daughter had framed him and killed him. Suddenly the prince rose and said that in truth he would prefer the girl to do as she wished. If she's used to speaking informally, that's fine with him. And he also wants her not to see him as a prince, but just a man named Bist. Sometimes he feels like everyone is looking at him, but no one sees him. Layla asked him why he was talking like a tramp. She addressed him as the Crown Prince anyway, and said she had something she wanted to say. Baiste thinks it's better to call him by his first name. Layla agreed and told him to put her to work. She can't just relax while she's being looked after, and she's been taught that favours must be repaid. Baiste thought about the fact that this old man had taught her a bunch of useless things, but he asked the girl what she could do. Layla replied that she could chop wood, only the prince already had someone to do it. Layla asked about mending torn clothes, to which Bist replied that unfortunately they throw away such clothes here. The girl continued to think, but Bist had a suggestion. Cecil asked Layla if she was really going to be okay, since the place hadn't been cared for in a while. It was Baiste's library, but he's an adult now, so it's not in use. From today, Layla will be in charge of the Crown Prince's library. Cecil shared that His Highness gave her a map of the library, and she can use it to organise the books. The shelves are divided by science, so she needs to not move books between them, however she can alphabetise them. Layla clarified that it wasn't a good idea to do some cleaning first. Cecil didn't understand at first, but then agreed that if she put the dusty books away, she would have to take them out again later. Cecil noted that she would bring everything for cleaning and asked her mistress to wait for a moment. Layla thought she saw Baiste because the man's hair was silver. In the window was Archduke Lumiere, Baiste's uncle. He didn't understand how the hell that had happened. He hadn't just arrived here after a long time. Emperor Clark Baines de Orléans was not pleased with the Archduke's frequent visits to the palace, so he came to see Bist while he was away. He had heard the palace maids talking about the woman Bist had brought. Lumiere wondered if his nephew was leaving to fetch her, but he later pointed out that there was no point in lamenting what had already happened, and it wasn't too late, so there was a chance. Lumiere burst into Baiste's office. The prince noted that they hadn't seen his uncle for a long time, and he asked him why he had arrived so suddenly without an announcement. Lumiere indignantly asked his nephew why the hell he brought this woman. He saw her, but it's not too late, so let him send her back to where he brought her from. Baiste stood up and threateningly clarified how it was that his uncle had seen her, and without his permission. Lumiere stated that it didn't matter now, and he asked Baiste not to do something he would regret. Before he could finish, the prince called the guards and ordered the Archduke out of the palace. Lumiere was shocked. He asked Bista to listen to him. The Crown Prince replied that this time he would forgive him for showing up unannounced. so he hoped that next time the Archduke would wait for permission first. Lumiere mentally turned to a girl named Flora and asked her what he should do with his nephew. Baste was having a meal with a lady. The lady shared that she had heard that he had brought a girl from the province. Beast noted that he hadn't realized that rumors spread so quickly. The girl clarified that he didn't even want to hide it, after all, not even from her, his fiancée. Beast pointed out to the missus that it was only in the plans, they weren't engaged yet. The lady was hurt by this, she wanted to object, but kept silent. Beister wondered that if she wanted to provoke him, maybe she should be more patient. He realized that Count Rimuth could not be trusted, but his family was second only to the imperial family in wealth. The prince wondered if the count might be trying to elevate his status with this marriage. However, he remarked that no, there was something wrong here. The earl's daughter added that as the prince knows, His Majesty insists on this engagement. Bist thought about the fact that the emperor, for whom the honour of the Seven on Leon is most important, wants to make another nobleman stronger. It's impossible. The girl added that the engagement would in any case go as planned, and she was only worried about him. As the count's daughter had heard, this girl stinks terribly. Suddenly she's picked up some kind of contagion. Or maybe she's a witch who got close to the prince to put a curse on him, because not all aristocrats are the same. And from what she'd heard, this girl was only the daughter of a country baron. The prince had better get rid of her as soon as possible for the sake of his reputation. Bist rose from his chair and stated that he certainly thought the girl didn't know much, but he didn't suspect she was that stupid. The count's daughter told His Highness that this was too much. She was about to become a princess, and he was being so rude to her. Baster wondered since when ordinary aristocrats interfere in the decisions of the imperial family. He is the crown prince and has the right to bring anyone he wants, to make any decisions he wants, and the girl has no choice but to remain silent. The prince stepped closer to the girl and noted that Miss had turned so pale. Until the engagement, she had better concentrate on regaining her health. Let her sit quietly in her home. The count's daughter couldn't believe she had been so insulted. He orders her to ride away in this carriage and not to leave the house until after their engagement. The girl is sure that he cannot treat her like that. The count's daughter told the coachman that she would like to stop by somewhere before leaving. Layla, meanwhile, has almost finished cleaning the library. Now she has to arrange the books. She started biting her fingernail, not sure what she should do. If she started cracking open the books, they would immediately realize that she couldn't read. Just then, Layla yelped, noting that she had something on her fingernails. She remembered that Cecil had painted her nails and not just her nails. She washed Layla's hair with warm water and smeared oil on it so that it became soft, and her skin became smooth too. Layla had been thin before, but now she had gained weight. She wondered if Baster would then say that she was a sweet and beautiful mistress. Just then, the count's daughter entered the library abruptly. She questioned what that smell was and why she had come in the first place. Layla realized that she was already weaned from the hateful stares of other people. The count's daughter noted that Layla was indeed the girl His Highness had brought. The count's daughter clarified if Layla knew who she was, but the girl clarified if she should know. The miss remarked that it was such an impertinence. She was the daughter of a baron from the village and spoke to the count's daughter like that. Layla still didn't understand, to which the count's daughter stated that she was about to become a princess, so she should be respected. She is the crown prince's fiancée, Elizabeth Remote. Layla didn't realize if this girl was really Baster's fiancée. Turning around, Elizabeth stated as she introduced herself, though that was not why she was here. She had come to warn Layla not to do anything foolish without knowing the measure. She was only a temporary plaything for the prince, though no, just something out of the ordinary. Elizabeth also adds that when Baiste comes to his senses, he won't even look at someone like Layla. She asks Layla to be as quiet as a caged bird, and then just as quietly disappear. Elizabeth thinks the girl understood her, so she'll go and hope they never see each other again. Layla asked if Elizabeth loved him. Elizabeth clarified if the girl was asking if she loved the prince, whereupon she laughed. The count's daughter remarked that Layla was so naive, were all the villagers like her? Layla told her to answer if she loves Baiste. Elizabeth replied that of course not. Except for his status as crown prince, he is well enough himself, but she would gladly marry him if he were a filthy pig as well. She only wants one thing, to become empress. And she's willing to do anything to become empress and tower over everyone. Layla asked her that she would be happy if she became empress. However, what about Beiste's feelings? Elizabeth, however, did not understand what difference it made. How could she know if he was happy or not? She sincerely did not understand why it mattered. And then Layla shoved her sharply, causing her to fall to the floor. Elizabeth was angry. How dare Layla? She would call the guards and the girl would not say hello. Elizabeth remembered Beiste's words, that she should concentrate on regaining her health before the engagement and sit quietly at home. She motioned for Layla to wait, because she wouldn't get away with it. Layla rushed to the bist. Cecil saw her and asked her mistress where she was going. Layla remarked that it was good that Cecil was here and asked her where Beiste was now. She should meet him right now. Cecil asked the mistress to wait. Layla thought about the fact that she should ask Beiste personally if she was really his fiancée, and if it was true, she should tell him that his fiancée was a very strange person. Just then, Layla heard laughter outside the door she was passing. The maids were talking there. One of them clarified that it was nonsense that this girl would really become his woman because she was so disgusting and smelled so bad. Another said that she had never met such a bastard in her life. The first maid agreed with her, because now His Highness was interested in her, but later she would be thrown out. The other added that he would soon tire of such a mediocre girl, aka ugly and poor. One of the Hunchkins couldn't even believe that Layla was an aristocrat. Another agreed with her. She thought at first that he had brought some beggar. Then one of the maids asked the others if they could smell it. Others agreed that it was the girl's foul odour. One of the maids opened the door abruptly, but there was no one behind it. During the evening meal, Bist noted that Layla looked so exhausted and asked her if something had happened. The girl was silent, but a little later replied that nothing had happened. She was fine. The girl behaved strangely enough afterwards. One night, when she was standing on the balcony in her pyjamas, Bist came to her, and noting that she was not eating well, asked her to drink this. The girl thanked him, and said she would have a drink a little later. Beister asked her to tell him if she didn't like it here. He pointed out that she had been in a bad mood for days. Layla replied that it was not so. It was quite a nice place. This is the first time she has ever been in such a comfortable environment. Bist asked her to tell him what was bothering her. A couple of days ago, Layla realized she had no choice but to run away. Those maids were telling the truth. There are things Layla wants to say and ask Beisty, but does she have the right to do so? She wondered if she should just leave the place in silence. But remembering all the moments with Beisty, she decided that no, she didn't want to disappear like that. She wanted to be near Beisty. Grabbing his hands, Layla screamed that she didn't love him. Beisty didn't understand what the girl was even talking about. She seriously asked him if he loved his fiancée. Layla concluded that Beisty didn't love her either. She asked if they were perverted, why they were getting married if they didn't like each other. Beisty decided to tell in a nutshell that marriages between members of the imperial family and aristocrats are always mutually beneficial. Factors such as location and financial status are more important than feelings. Layla didn't understand if he wouldn't be unhappy if he married her, to which Beister replied that he might be. Layla indignantly asked him why he was talking about his unhappy future, like it was none of his business. Beister quipped that it was because he was the crown prince, and some people's fate was decided from the moment they were born. However, if he could choose who to marry, if he could marry the person he loved. Layla asks if there is anything she can do to help him. He is a good man. She doesn't want to see him marry someone he doesn't like, and his life become miserable. Beister thought about it, and noted that if there was a child out of wedlock. Layla didn't immediately understand about a child out of wedlock, and clarified if he was talking about a child not from his fiancée. Beast apologized because he was so upset and said whatever he wanted. He really asked her to ignore her, he was just blabbing. Then Layla said that she would give birth. She would give him a baby, a child out of wedlock. She can give birth to it, and if it comes, it turns out Elizabeth will keep it. The girl's heart is beating so fast, suddenly Beister will think the girl is frivolous or reject her. She squeezed her eyes shut, thinking about the fact that he was silent. Suddenly, Baiste picked the girl up and carried her into the room. He placed the girl on the bed and sat on his knees in front of her. Baiste turned to Layla and stated that he was giving her one last chance to change her mind, and she didn't seem to know what she was talking about. Layla stated that she knew everything. He noted that she had said that a loveless marriage was a misery. He decided to ask what about a child born out of love. He added that he would tell the honcho that he wanted a child from Layla, wanted her to give him a baby and no one else. However, he doesn't want her to do it just to help him. Layla mentally noted that Baiste was so cute, and she declared to him that she liked him. She didn't understand how not to fall in love with him. She shared that she didn't fully understand what love was, since she had never experienced it and no one had taught her about it. But if love is in her, if she can love. In the next instant, Baiste plopped the girl on the bed and asked her if she was sure, which the girl confirmed. Bis took off his shirt and kissed the girl. Layla regarded him as her savior. Layla moaned in pleasure, and at one point Baiste felt funny. The girl indignantly asked what was so funny, to which the guy replied that she was cute. Layla didn't understand what he was saying, but Baiste just started kissing her in different areas of her face. He seemed to have been waiting for this moment since their first meeting. Yes, he had wanted this from the beginning. Kissing the attractive, neat lips, stroking her body, overriding that scent and becoming one with Layla. He becomes stronger when she experiences pleasure. Baiste asked the girl if she felt good and stated that he was starting. Unexpectedly, Layla asked him to wait. However, Baiste continued kissing her. He can't take it anymore. He won't wait. He'll take everything. Her gaze, her breath, even that seductive scent he's ready to suffocate to death in. Absolutely everything. The beast finally ate the flower. The next morning, Beast sat dressed in his clothes, while Layla continued to sleep. Suri appeared in the room and alerted His Highness that it was time to move out. When Layla opened her eyes, she noticed his seat was empty and assumed he had already left on business. As she turned around, experienced the pain, and noted that her thighs were so sore, this really was her first time. It was breathtaking to the point of death, and her whole body trembled. It felt like she was falling down and floating at the same time, so she couldn't come to her senses. And yesterday, Baiste had been very intimidating. Suri alerted that His Majesty arrived at the palace early in the morning, and without even resting, he immediately ordered to find Baiste. They don't know what he wanted to see him for, but thank goodness the servants talked him into getting some rest. It must have been hard. Baiste really thought it was more likely it was the girl who had a hard time last night. Even the most patient man couldn't have held back any longer. Layla said she would give birth to a baby with such an innocent expression on her face. However, she doesn't even know how a baby beast is born. God has set conditions to preserve the power of Onlayan. Not everyone can bear an Onlayan heir. Only a woman whose scent charms the beast within can bear a child from him. In truth, it wasn't such a difficult condition. That scent was an intolerable odour to everyone but Onlayan, so those who are different from the rest leave other people on their own. And just like that, these scented girls fall into the beast's trap. They cannot withstand the power of Onlayan. Heirs born strong suck the life out of their mothers before they give birth, and during birth, they strip it away. Great and noble messenger of a god, this is how monsters are born. His Majesty was informed that Crown Prince Baiste Black d'Onlayan had arrived, to which the Emperor said, "Let him come in." On the throne sat the third Emperor of the Onlayan Empire, Clark d'Onlayan. His father took stock of the fact that his son had finally found Cecil, looked at the sleeping Layla, and smiled slightly. However, she still called sharply to her mistress, and stating that it was no longer time to sleep, abruptly opened the curtains and told her to wake up. Layla asked Cecil what time it was and where Baiste was. Cecil replied that His Highness had gone to greet the returning Emperor and might be back late today. He quickly left when His Highness returned. Cecil was worried because it had been raining until morning, but luckily it was sunny now, and maybe because of the rain the sky was clear. Cecil said that if the girl didn't mind, they could go for a walk, and then she abruptly noticed that Mistress didn't smell. Layla was shocked. She didn't know what Cecil was talking about. Cecil stated confidently that Mistress's scent was gone, but the girl was sure that was impossible, and maybe she had a runny nose. Cecil stated that she could be wrong, but she could definitely smell the scent of the fragrant oil in the room and the tea she had brought the girl. Layla shudderingly clarified if there really wasn't an odor, if she was lying. Cecil wondered why she would lie to her mistress about such a thing. Layla abruptly jumped off the bed and rushed somewhere away from the room. If she really didn't stink anymore. She ran straight out into the street where she met Baiste. He asked the girl worriedly why she was in her pajamas and barefoot. However, the girl rushed past him and ran up to Suri and grabbed him by the collar, addressing him seriously. Suri didn't understand why she was doing that, and then noticed Baiste's angry look and asked her not to come any closer. The girl let go of him and stated that she knew it. Her scent couldn't just disappear. Then Suri realized and stated that there was no smell. He used to hold his breath so he couldn't smell it. All in all, he was pretty sure Layla didn't smell. Suddenly Layla fell to the ground and everyone rushed to her. She had begged so many times, asked for no more stink, for that odor to disappear from her body. She prayed every night. But this wish was not realized, and she lived in despair. Layla said aloud that her body no longer smelled. That girl and Bist's servant confirmed it, that her body odor was gone. Bist confirmed her conclusion, they said so. Suddenly she threw herself into Bist's arms and sobbing, thanked him. Miracles happen after meeting him. She was really grateful to him. Baiste was in his room and noted that he was bored. Everything was going according to plan because he had talked to his father today. The emperor during that conversation noted that while he was away, the prince had brought the girl to the palace. Baiste then replied that it was not in his character to hesitate. The emperor agreed, for once he saw her, he could no longer hold back. This is the instinct of the Onleon, proof that they are the messengers of a god. That's what His Majesty thinks. Baiste then declared that if he could make her his, he would be allowed to do anything. He also added that they had spent all last night together and he had left his seed in her. His Majesty replied that he already knew that. Suddenly Suri heard a rumble in Baiste's room and opened the door sharply and wanted to ask His Highness what was going on, but he was silent. He noted that Baiste was always in a bad mood after talking to His Majesty. However, he thought today would be an exception because of Layla. Baiste turned to Suri and stated that it was noisy, let everyone leave. Suri accepted the order and noted that the maids would then return in the morning. Bist noted to Suri to leave as well. Suri walked away without realizing what he expected. He doesn't think Baiste would cry even if pierced with a sword. He's just a stone who always acts calculatingly. He can't love. Count Rimert asked, "Please His Majesty to explain why his daughter is being treated like this." The Count did not understand what his daughter had done to be punished in such a way. Was it not too much? He asked if it was because of the rumoured girl His Highness had brought from the province. The Emperor grinned and mentally noted that everyone wanted to annoy him today. Clark told his son that he already knew and mentally noted that he seemed very surprised that the Emperor was aware of last night's events. It pleased him that he had the prince in the palm of his hand and let him not forget it. The Emperor reminded him that his son had not forgotten that he was not allowed to fall in love with this girl. Baiste was silent at first, and then stated that the Emperor seemed to have forgotten. He reminded him that he had made the girl who didn't smell his bride. He had heard that the Emperor had health problems, but it was hardly dementia. Those words made His Majesty angry. Biste declared that if his father heard him, he would break the engagement tomorrow. Suddenly, His Majesty rose from his throne and addressed his son. He reminded him that it had been 60 years since the Onlean imperial family had united the continent and created an empire. Baiste didn't understand what the Emperor meant by that. His Majesty had noticed that now the death of Onlean's partner might arouse suspicion. If the Empress dies after giving birth. Baiste really didn't understand when his father cared about such things. That was why the Emperor wanted the Crown Prince to have a bride for the public. He wanted to force her to raise the stinking wench's child, since she herself could not have children with him, and it would be her child. His Majesty threateningly asked his son why he disobeyed his order since he told him to hide her. The Emperor noted that Bist had better start watching his language. No one must know that Layla is pregnant. much less that she has given birth. His Majesty didn't understand the look in Bist's eyes as he continued to suppress his power. The Emperor wondered if his son had forgotten. He would only pass this power on to him if Baiste had an heir. Until then, he would not be able to outmaneuver his father. During the conversation with the Count, the Emperor thought that he had frightened his son enough and that he would not act for some time. To the Count, His Majesty replied that he would certainly talk to his son about it, for which the Count thanked him. The Emperor added that he was sure the Count's fears would not be justified and asked him not to worry and to go back to his room. Cecil served the drink to Layla, noting that it would give her strength. Layla thanked her, to which Cecil replied that she could say no thanks. Ceci knew that His Highness came to the mistress's bedroom every day. Her mother was Baiste's nanny, and she followed her every day to learn her job until she died. So Cecil knows his character well. When he acts so friendly with Miss Layla, she gets goosebumps, as if she's watching a production with a top-notch actor. However, maybe she's wrong. Meanwhile, Elizabeth was at a tea party with the Crown Prince. She was delighted, for although she knew that the imperial pastry chef was very clever, but the strawberry cake was really appetizing. She wondered if she would soon be eating this delicious cake every day. By the way, Elizabeth didn't think she would see His Highness so soon, and clarified, it was all the will of the god Onleon, and the wish of the strict emperor. Has something gone wrong with his approval? And of course she is right. Bist suddenly decided to wonder where Elizabeth started when eating strawberry cake. The girl stopped and thoughtfully replied that she leaves the tastiest things for later. She eats the strawberries after she has eaten the whole piece. Elizabeth clarified that His Highness ate the best part of the strawberry right away. Baiste agreed, but noted that he didn't want to eat the cake itself afterward. He's eaten delicious red strawberries, and there's no point in eating a cake that doesn't whet his appetite. If he doesn't want to eat it, he'll just throw it away after eating as many strawberries as he wants. During the tea party, Baiste's uncle Lumiere approached Layla. The girl asked him who he was. Cecil turned to His Highness, but Lumiere stopped her and said that he wanted to introduce himself. Layla remarked that he was strange, and she didn't understand why he was looking at her like that, and his face looked like Baiste's. Layla was a little tired. It was all because of Baiste. Last night, while caressing, Baiste had stopped and told the girl to talk. She noted that he behaved very differently in bed. Baiste clarified if the girl was scared, but she denied it. She just asked him to be a little more gentle. However, Baiste kissed her neck abruptly and apologized, because it was hard for him to do that when she was so beautiful. Layla thought about the fact that Baiste seems to be very hardy. At that moment, Lumiere just appeared next to her. He introduced himself that he was Archduke Lumiere d'Istrie de Onleon, Bist's uncle and brother of the Emperor. Layla rose abruptly from her seat, for he was Baiste's uncle, and introduced herself, her name being Layla Violette de Valencia. Lumiere remarked that meant it was she, and he was very glad to see them. The girl thought to herself that it was not surprising, but she and Baiste looked so much alike. She even wished that Baiste could be like him when he gets earlier. Layla remembered something and asked if he was near the library. The man replied that he had come to see Bist a couple of days ago, and Layla noted that she was not mistaken. She thought she saw Baiste with a different hair colour. Lumiere didn't understand her, and the girl noted that he looked so much like Baiste, that is, his nephew looked like him. Mentally, Lumiere added that she noticed it even from a distance, yet she looked so much like Flora, even that beautiful scent. Lumiere asked Miss how long it had been since she had arrived. Layla hesitated and replied that it seemed 1 month. The man replied that he was sorry, but they would talk about it next time. Lumiere took Layla's hand and kissed it. He stated that he was in a hurry to get somewhere, and they would meet Lady Valencia again. Bist was informed that His Highness the Archduke had arrived. Lumiere stated that he had to talk to his nephew. Baiste clarified what else his uncle wanted to talk about. He chased him away out of politeness. However, he is a busy man, so let his uncle go closer to the case or he came to her. Baiste clarified, hadn't he warned not to go near her again? Lumiere clarified, didn't his nephew know what would happen when the girl got pregnant? If she gives birth, she will die. Baiste replied that everyone dies sooner or later, and he did not understand why Lumiere was so worried. They were both born that way. So why is Bista's uncle making it sound like he's the only villain here? Lumiere agreed that they were all born that way, and His Majesty had also deceived Flora. The Archduke wondered if Bista's mother, Flora, would have given birth to him knowing she was going to die, since his father had just deceived her. It turns out that Baiste wants to do the same thing. Lumiere said that if he did not tell her the truth, then let him return to where he brought her. Baiste replied that she had nowhere to return to, and asked if the Archduke did not know the conditions in which the girl grew up, so he took her away so easily. Lumiere told Baiste to stop. Bista turned to His Highness, saying that he did not understand why Lumiere was so concerned about some country girl, and then he suggested that maybe he wanted to steal her away from his nephew. However, he can't give her to him, even though he is his uncle, because Layla is his now. Lumiere stated that Baiste has changed, and he didn't even realize he had become like this. Can't he see himself from the outside? He is just like his father. Even his facial expression is the same. Lumiere turned around and said that he did not see the point in continuing the dialogue. As he left, he told Baiste that he didn't know him at all. Bist turned to Suri and asked him if everything was ready for the meeting. They were moving out. Suri confirmed everything. Layla was eating alone. Cecil informed her that there would be steak for lunch today because she remembered that the girl liked it. Layla thanked Cecil. However, the fork fell out of the girl's hand as she covered her mouth with her hands. It was bad to eat and ended up vomiting. When the girl was in her chambers, Baiste burst in on her. He approached the girl's bed and asked her if he was telling the truth. He was so glad. The girl sharply covered his mouth and whispered to him that she didn't think their plan would work if I found out. She confirmed that she was pregnant and asked him if everything was going as planned. Baiste smirked and seriously asked the girl if she would marry him. He doesn't want their child to be born out of wedlock. They can't do that to him, so he wants her to marry him. Layla replied that as he wants, and wondered if they could get married. Beastie noted that of course they can. His father is a little stubborn, and it will take a little time, but she trusts him and will wait. She, he, and their baby would officially become a family. Layla clarified that they would indeed become a family. He confirmed these words, adding that they would help, care, and love each other for life. Layla blossomed at these words and, agreeing, proposed to him to really become a family. Baiste was shocked, and the girl asked what was wrong with him. The man smiled, replying that it was the first time he had seen her smile, and that her smile was very beautiful. The girl laughed sweetly and asked him not to talk like that. She's a silly girl. Layla pointed out that it was all thanks to him, Baiste, and she was really grateful to him. Baiste thanked her for agreeing to marry him. Silly girl. She smiles at the thought of having a family. She knows nothing at all, poor thing. A ball was being held in the palace in the evening. Suri was walking in the corridor, and suddenly he met Cecile, who started to fall. The boy caught the girl, and she thanked him for catching her and said she would go. Abruptly, Suri grabbed Cecile's hand and clarified when he could hear the answer to the question he had asked the girl before leaving. He clarified if she didn't trust him just because he was 6 years younger than her. Cecile noted sadly that she couldn't be happy. Suri didn't understand what that meant. Cecile stated that she had already said that she didn't want to discuss her feelings and added that Layla was looking for Suri, and she would go. The girls' guests discussed if this summer banquet wasn't beautiful. Everything is so bright, it's even hard to open your eyes. The girls noticed that His Highness was also here, but they didn't understand why. After all, isn't His Highness trying to appease the Emperor? A young man greeted His Highness Bist and asked to accept a gift, a piece of jewellery. It was a modest gesture. He only thought it would go with the colours in their palace. Bist thought for a moment. Meanwhile, people were discussing something heatedly, which meant the rumours weren't lying. His Highness's woman would give birth to an heir, and if she was to become empress, they had better show their best side. Layla thanked Baiste. The jewellery he had been given at the banquet, he put it around Layla's neck. She stated that she had never seen such a beautiful necklace in her life. Bist asked the girl not to thank him, and that it suited her. But the girl still thanked him for more compliments. Bist inquired about easing the girl's nausea. Layla replied that it was fine and Cecil was looking for food that she could eat. Bist noted that the same wasn't enough. The girl looked bad. Layla asked Baiste not to worry as the healer said that it would pass soon and let him get ready. She would eat a lot. Beister was silent, and then grinned, and suddenly asked what he should do. The girl didn't understand what was wrong. Beister took her by the waist and pulled her to him, and told her that he was crazy enough to want to pounce on her. The girl said his name in embarrassment. He noted that Layla was so sweetly embarrassed. She asked him to stop. Suri and Cecile watched them in silence. Already in his office, Beister asked Suri how the investigation about the Holy Father went, the Holy Father's daily routine. He gets up early in the morning and washes his face with holy water brought by the priest. Then he heads to the small temple in the palace. After the prayer ends, the priests bring in sick children, and most of them are orphans. The Empire sends the poor or terminally ill children to him. The Holy Father treats them as best he can, and the people call him one of a kind. Suri genuinely didn't understand why Beister wanted him to follow him. Suri added that the Holy Father is more in demand and works hard. Suri would certainly do anything for money, but following the Holy Father was not to his liking. Suri pointed out that there was no point in trying to figure out anything else. Beister sternly stated that he would decide that for himself, not Suri. Suri apologized. Of course, before the Crown Prince's trip, the Emperor was limping, and only the inner circle knew that. The guy didn't understand how the Emperor was able to attend the banquet in such a state. After all, his weakness might be exposed. Beister noted that during from the conversation then, he seemed fine, and maybe he just didn't notice. However, if that wasn't the case, Beister turned to the mage and clarified with him that he had said he could follow a trail, to which the mage agreed. He'd picked up on the fact that not at any distance, but within the confines of the palace was possible. Bist had ordered him then to track down the Holy Father and report to the Crown Prince. Everything must be told without leaving out a single detail. Layla sat over the book, declaring that she didn't understand anything at all. She wanted to learn how to write, but she doesn't even know the correct pronunciation. Layla decided to return the book to the library before anyone noticed. She didn't realize what to do. Beister appeared abruptly and asked her what she was talking about. The girl was startled, and the man smilingly shared that he had brought her favorite strawberries. He inquired what the book in her hands was. Layla blanched, and Beister snatched it out of her hands to show him. It was a spelling book. Layla stated that she had just borrowed it from the library, but she was going to return it when she went to clean up the place. She started to admit why she had borrowed the book, and in a moment she thought about what she was going to do, in case Beister realized she was an idiot who didn't even know the alphabet. The guy stated that he is not mad and asked the girl to calm down and tell him. He wants to know everything about her so she can tell him the truth. Layla replied that she was learning because it doesn't know the alphabet. The girl apologized to him that his fiancé is so stupid. She clarifies if she is an idiot, since she is a 20-year-old aristocrat who can't read. Beister thinks her family are horrible people. Arson was too weak a punishment. He thinks they should have had their ears cut off, their eyes gouged out, and their tongues ripped off. Those treacherous people were bullying the child. Beister asked the girl not to say that. She's not an idiot. He considers those who abandoned her as idiots, because how can you leave such a cute girl? Layla noted that he is so kind that she can't even believe it and he can bully her. Beister declared to her that she wasn't. In that moment, he realized that the only one worse than those bastards was him. He's scum. He tricked her. He's worse than a murderer. Layla threw herself into his arms and told him that she would try, because she liked him and wanted to live up to him. Suddenly, Beister stood up abruptly and, covering his mouth, said that he had a lot of things to do and had to go. He added that there was no need to see him off, and then he ran off. Cecile was teaching Layla. She was telling her about how the Onleyan Empire was founded. However, Lady Layla was asleep sitting at her textbook. Cecile asked Lady Layla to wake up, because in class you have to listen. Layla apologized. She accidentally dozed off, and she is really curious, but she is so sleepy. Cecile said it's okay. She's already good at memorizing things. She also added that pregnancy often causes drowsiness. Layla still didn't believe she was pregnant with Beister. Her toxicosis passed quickly, and she feels nothing inside. She is surprised that there is a person living inside her. Layla doesn't know what a loving family is after all, but with Bist, will it really come true for her? Layla remembered something and turned to Cecile and asked if Beister was coming today. Cecile replied that it seemed to be delayed, as the prince was performing His Majesty's duties. Layla accepted this information and noted that there was nothing to be done then. Thanks to him, she had learned to write and was able to learn things she had not known before. However, she hasn't seen him in a week. Layla is sure he is trying to convince the emperor just as she is trying to become a proper princess. She urged herself to mentally pull herself together. Beister was at the banquet and drinking wine. He was seated at the same table as his father and the count. The count turned to His Majesty and remarked that today's banquet was still as marvellous. It demonstrates the nobility of the emperor. The emperor clarified with Count Remoth if he really felt that way, to which the count agreed and stated that he would go down in the history of Onleon. His Majesty laughed and noted that the count was knowledgeable. Beister noticed that the Holy Father was also absent today. According to what the mage found out, he spends all day with the emperor, except for working in the temple until noon, and when he's not around, he's blessing high-ranking aristocrats. This makes Beister laugh. It is obvious why he is doing this, not in the temple, but in the emperor's reception room. The count has informed His Majesty that he will be leaving him for a while. The emperor took note of this, for the count is a busy man, and he knows it. The count thanked His Majesty. The emperor stated that Bist had violated his orders again, for he was sure he had told him to hide everything about the girl. Bist replied that there were hundreds, even thousands of people living in the palace. How would he stop the rumors? If the emperor wanted to keep it a secret, maybe he should have locked her in a cell. The emperor was shocked by his words. Bist added that it would be problematic, because you can't hide a child. God had set a difficult condition, and he must win the heart of a bad-smelling woman. The emperor added that he was about a trip to the north. There he happened to find a smelly girl. Beister indignantly told His Majesty that he hadn't promised another heir. Clark asked his son to calm down. After all, he had said it was an accident. The emperor added that she was 16 full years old, and wasn't that the perfect age? Beast replied that she was young, and now aristocrats did not marry at that age but were betrothed. The emperor stated that this was what he was talking about. After all, wouldn't it be better to have more cards in hand? And the emperor was willing to give it to him. This made Beister angry. Suddenly someone addressed His Majesty. It was Bist's uncle, Archduke Lumiere. Lumiere noted that he was late. The emperor remarked that his only brother had come this far, and asked him how he was enjoying the banquet. Lumiere replied that it was thanks to His Majesty, to which the emperor grinned and remarked that his brother was still rude. Lumiere approached the crown prince, stating that they had not seen each other in a long time. At one point, Lumiere came in through the window to see Layla. He coughed and remarked that he and the girl had not seen each other for a long time. Layla replied that she was delighted to meet His Highness the Archduke. The man asked if she had learned etiquette, to which the girl replied that Beister had helped her learn everything she wanted to know. Lumiere didn't understand why he had even come, since Layla didn't smell that fragrance at all. He disappears so as not to seduce other Onleyan when the girl got pregnant. He knew she was pregnant, but he still came here, and it was so stupid. Suddenly Layla turned to the Archduke and clarified if she could ask him for something. Lumiere clarified if she really had a request for him. She said to please pass the word along to Beister if she meets him. She wants him not to overdo it. Lumiere clarified why the girl wouldn't tell him herself. Layla replied that she was told. Then he's been so busy lately that he doesn't have time to return to the palace, and his uncle can safely enter the imperial palace. She doesn't force him, however, but Lumiere embarrassingly clarified, wasn't it better to say those words in person if she really wanted to tell him? When Beister headed down the corridor of the imperial palace, he met Layla there. Beister asked her what she was doing here, to which the girl replied that she had Cecile bring her to see him. The girl asked him to get some herbs. She used to use them when she lived in the forest. She had laboured to find them in her garden, and if he was bored with the work, let him be sure to try it. Layla asked him worriedly why he was silent. The expression on Beister's face was threatening. The girl asked him what was wrong, if he was not feeling well. Beister apologised to the girl and remarked if she could leave him alone today. He abruptly snatched the grass from her hand and thanked her. As he left, he said goodbye to her and rushed to his room. Sitting on the bed, he didn't understand, because her scent was long gone, so why his body wanted her so badly, like an impossibly hungry beast. Baster began to remember moments with her father. After a moment, he stated that yes, he was a beast, and a beast does not behave like a human. Cecile and Suri were talking in the garden. Suri clarified if that was the only reason the girl had called him. Cecile inquired if it was not enough, as Lady Layla misses His Highness. Suri clarified that the girl had brought him here to talk about work. He asked nervously if she meant to say that she didn't know that this was a place for couples to meet. Cecile replied that she didn't. Suri remarked that he didn't think His Highness would come, just because Lady Layla asked. Cecile said that in that case, let Suri tell Baster that the girl's condition is very unstable in early pregnancy. Suri exhaled and replied that he would convey. Suri reports to Bist that he is sure the Holy Father is engaging in corruption. As the Crown Prince expected, the aristocrats are giving him huge amounts of precious metals. Apparently it's being run by paid new priests, but the majority are sticking to one position. Baste said it would be easy to take care of it all at once, to which Suri agreed. His servant hesitated a bit and turned to His Highness and said that he had something else to tell him. He stated that Miss Cecile had asked him to tell him that Lady Layla missed him. After their last meeting, Lady Layla is very worried about him. Beist was excited, for the mere mention of her name seemed to have that flavour. Suddenly, a young man burst into their office and said that they have a big problem. Suri asked him what he was panicking about. The young man stammered that Count Rimut had been murdered. No one understood how such a thing could have happened. The Count was found at night under the terrace of the banquet hall. The question arose, who could have a grudge against Count Rimut? Because it could not be just some grudge. After all, who could it be? And the answer was that it was His Highness the Crown Prince. The maids were discussing that His Highness brought that girl, and she got pregnant. The Grafs and his daughter must have been pestering him. Perhaps that was the reason he had been killed. One of the maids clarified to another, didn't she think it was possible? Hadn't she heard rumours that he was a cold-blooded and brutal killer? The maids didn't know what to do. They were so scared. Layla heard all this talk and mentally thought about what she knows, that rumours are not to be believed. She believes in Baste, who she knows personally, and he wouldn't hurt anyone. She mentally turned to him, asking if he was okay. In front of His Majesty, one of his subordinates told me that the murderer of the Earl was no ordinary person. It could be a mercenary or a swordsman. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to find evidence. Everyone present began to whisper. Baiste himself thinks it's impertinent. His father had spread rumours that he was the murderer, and now he was holding a meeting on the case. It was very likely that the Emperor had killed him. Baiste wondered if the Emperor had been so enraged by his refusal, so he was warning him in this way. One of those present turned to His Highness, stating what he wanted to say, but the Emperor ordered everyone to calm down. He asked everyone not to believe the rumours and to calm down first. They hadn't even found any trace of the murderer. The Emperor turned to Helton. They will search the banquet hall, the Count's estate, and everything in the vicinity, and hunt down all the assassins. The Emperor stated that Helton must find the culprit, and the Crown Prince was put in charge. His Majesty asked if everyone agreed. Baiste was shocked. Those present started whispering that they weren't sure if it was a good idea, and what on earth was His Majesty thinking. The Emperor stated that the Crown Prince would be able to catch the culprit quickly. He is wise beyond his years and would do the right thing. After all, he is successful in his duties. The Emperor trusts Bist. One of the inherents asked if the Emperor sympathizes too much with Bist. He has not started other heirs, and is focused only on him. His interlocutor hopes that His Highness will not disappoint His Majesty. Baiste abruptly stormed into his office. Suri worriedly asked His Highness if he was all right. Things are very bad. If they don't find evidence, the Crown Prince will be the prime suspect. Bist replied that if there was no evidence, it would be easy to fake it. Suri didn't understand what he meant. Bist stated that he was not only suspected because of the rumours, but also because he was not at the banquet. Then, including him, those who were not at the banquet had their own motives. Someone who had a bad relationship with the Count could be framed, after all. The Count's business had increased, and he had made enemies. Suri stated to His Highness that it was a very good idea, Baiste clarified, nothing else the magician conveyed. Suri remembered and informed His Highness that tracking magic seemed to be very tiring, and he said he would continue after resting. Bist took note and ordered Suri to leave. Suri accepted the order and added that he would take care of business and report back to the prince. Bist remembered those present at the meeting and their conversations. He knew that the emperor had always been like this. He pretended to love the prince. However, he was actually stripping him of his powers for his own gain. And now Baiste had fallen into his trap again. He needed to get out of it. He didn't understand why he was so tired. Baiste went to Layla's sleeping bedside, and approaching the bed, he saw that she was sleeping with an embroidery. The embroidery depicted a panther, which alarmed Baiste. He called her a silly girl. Did she really think the crown prince would fall in love with a simple girl like her? Has she never once suspected anything? Why is she so selfless? She believes every word he says, praises everything he does. He took strands of her hair and squeezed them hard in his hand. He didn't understand why she didn't realize that he was a horrible and vile man. He remembered her saying he was her savior. He stated that she was right. This monster had taken her and would now ruin her life because this curse would save them. Meanwhile, His Majesty in some cellar inquired if the preparations were underway, to which he received a reply that Cogno. The Holy Father apprised him that they had the blood of pure and innocent children, so was it not time to carry out his will? The emperor had told him that if he needed anything, he would get anything he needed. When Layla awoke, she turned her attention to the place beside her. The rumpled bed, the warmth and the smell. Baiste was here. She realized he had come to see her. Layla cheerfully called out to Cecile and motioned for her to begin her lesson. Cecile was schlucked, for the girl had been asking about the prince's plans in the morning. But she accepted Lady Layla's request and said she would prepare everything. Layla thanked Cecile. The maid noted that she would bring the materials for the lesson and asked Miss to wait. Suddenly Layla felt sick and grabbed her stomach. The girl did not understand what it was, why her stomach hurt so much. Bist asked the magician where the Holy Father walks at night. The mage replied that he seems to go to the basement under the imperial palace. Baiste clarified if there was a basement. The mage shared that he had snuck into the temple while he was praying, but the Holy Father was not in the temple. He checked his footprints with magic and saw a passage under the altar that leads to the dungeon. There's a protection spell that the mage can't break, and he didn't learn more than that. However, he noted that there was a very dark aura emanating from the magic. Layla asked Cecile worriedly if Baiste was going to be tried. However, she said that there was no evidence against him. Cecil asked Lady Layla to calm down, for it was not His Highness who would be judged, but Viscount Rumont. Layla wondered if the Viscount was the murderer. Cecilia confirmed it and added that His Highness was above suspicion. Layla exhaled a sigh of relief and rejoiced. Suddenly someone came to them. Layla wondered who could have come here on the day of the big trial. It was someone who shocked Layla. Meanwhile, the court was in session. One of the jurors remarked that to kill Count Rimot for overtaking him in business, how could he do such a cruel thing? Another juror replied that it was not surprising for Vicomte Rumont. He had always been known for his rudeness. He was bold enough to use violence if someone interfered with his business, and he stole other businessmen's goods. Hiring an assassin to take down someone was not at all uncommon. Everyone was informed that the meeting was about to begin. The emperor remarked that he had gotten away with it this time too. There he was, his heir. Bist replied that enough of this joking, he would not get anywhere with it. The emperor replied that his disgruntled expression alone was enough to cheer him up. Baiste thought about how his father was always so brash and confident, but today he was in a particularly bad mood. Looking at his father's face, he tried to figure out since when he was interested in magic. The courtroom was notified that the Viscount would then be stripped of his title and sentenced to death for murder. The Viscount was horrified. He denied everything, saying that he was not the one who killed Count Rimot, and it was unjust. His Majesty stated that his honour was ending. The Viscount kept shouting to His Majesty to listen to him. This is when Bist noticed that there was no one in Archduke Lumiere's place, and he somehow didn't notice it. Lumiere, meanwhile, had come to Layla. The girl puzzledly asked him why he was here, to which he replied that he had something to tell her. Here the girl again grabbed her stomach in pain. Again her stomach hurts and she doesn't understand why. Lumiere realized what has begun. The power of Onleon that is eating the mother from the inside out. In a couple of months, this child. The Archduke feels there is no time, and he must tell her everything now, even if this child gets hurt. Cecile noted that she would take Lady Layla to the bedroom. However, the girl replied that she was fine. It was just the baby kicking. She was fine. Lumiere stated that it seemed the girl was in a lot of pain, and then the pain would only become more unbearable. Layla did not understand what that meant. The Archduke replied that the baby in her belly was killing her. Despite the fact that Baiste knew this, he did not prevent her pregnancy. Lumiere mentioned that he had told the girl that he wanted a child. However, he simply wished to be first in line to be emperor. He stated to the girl that she is being used. Baiste doesn't love her, but is only pretending to put her guard down. Layla tells him to stop, as it's so rude. She doesn't understand why Beast would trick her, and she considers Lumiere a bad man who is capable of framing her nephew. The girl clarified that if he doesn't have anything to say, if he can leave, she doesn't want to talk to him anymore. Lumiere stated that the cougar gave Onlea protection along with a curse. A fragrant girl smells vile to the average person, but to Onleon she is more fragrant and seductive than any flower. Only such a woman can give birth to an heir to Onleon. The throne is always given to the one who first has a successor. That is why Lumiere did not become emperor, though he was crown prince. He added that humans cannot bear the genes and power of the Onleon, so Layla will give birth and die. When flowers bear fruit, they die, living only one season. Suri didn't understand what that meant, meaning His Highness brought Layla here for that. Layla shouted for him not to say the impossible. He thinks Lumiere is a dirty liar, for how could her stench please Beast, since he has a problem with his sense of smell due to childhood trauma? The Archduke clarified, what if it was a lie? He could say anything to win her over, because a mother has to open her heart to get pregnant. Layla abruptly tore from her seat straight for the door and slammed it open, crashing into Baiste. Lumiere wondered if Baiste had heard and how much. Layla stated to Baiste that his uncle was a horrible person, because how could he be so mean to him? There was no way he would have deceived her. Baiste turned to his uncle and asked him if he had told him everything that Lumiere had agreed to. Layla began to reach out a trembling hand to Baiste, asking him if it was all a lie, everything his uncle had said. Was he really lying to her about loving her? Baiste replied that it was true. The girl did not believe it, and Baiste urged her to think hard, for he had not said he loved her. Everyone was puzzled to hear this. Layla realized that this was it. Baiste didn't love her. She was in pain and it made the tears flow. It hurt so much in her chest. Layla screamed and Cecile turned to her worriedly. The girl fainted right on the floor. She was asked to wake up. Layla was placed in a bed in her chambers. Next to her was Crown Prince Baiste. His Highness was approached by Suri and Cecile. He asked them what the doctor had said. Cecile replied that in addition to the pain in her abdomen, she had also fainted from shock, and pain at such an early stage of pregnancy does not lead to fainting. Baiste ordered that when the girl woke up again, have the doctor examine her again and report back to him. Baiste ordered Suri that they should go. Suddenly, he was taken by his clothes by a waking Layla. She clarified if that was all he needed from her. Baiste was silent, and the girl agreed that since he wanted to, she would do anything. She would have this baby. Baiste clarified if she knew what that meant, to which Layla replied that she didn't need this life anyway. It was always meaningless. Her life is filled with nothing but loneliness and abuse. As she hugged him, she declared that he was truly her savior. Her body, her life, her health, she would give everything to him, and when it was over, he would always be her savior. There was the sight of Baiste and Layla having a fun tea party in nature. The prince suggested the girl to go to the east in the summer. They have a villa there overlooking the beach. He asked the girl that she had not been to the sea. She would like it very much. However, the girl replied that she would not be able to, which shocked Beast, and he asked her why. The girl noted that he was also asking why, and the next moment she stabbed the dagger through his chest. Baiste called her name, and Layla appeared in front of him with eyes filled with blood, and she claimed that he had done this to her. Baiste woke up abruptly. It was a nightmare. He realized that Layla had nothing else, and remembered her words that her body, her life and health, she was giving everything to him. She had been abandoned since birth and was only surviving. It was not a life, but an existence, so she was easy to seduce. He wondered how she would react if he told her that. He remembered her blank stare filled with tears. Already in his office, in front of his subordinates, Baiste was reading the list, about half an apple, 2 cherry tomatoes, a piece of bread, and 2 glasses of water. He abruptly put the list on the table and asked Cecile if she realized that it was not enough for a pregnant woman. Cecile asked His Highness to apologize. Baiste replied to her that there was no need for a pathetic apology. That wasn't what he wanted to hear. He noted that the girl may no longer be able to perform her duties. Baiste wondered if she could pluck out one of her eyes, so she would immediately come to her senses and do the right thing. Here, Suri nervously turned to His Majesty, noting that often pregnant women don't eat well due to toxemia. In addition, this isn't the only pain Lady Layla is going through, so it's not at all surprising that she isn't eating much. Bist stated that this is why he appointed a special maid to take care of the special pregnant girl. However, why is this maid so useless? The mage thought about the fact that he wanted to get His Highness's permission at all, but apparently he would have to postpone it. Already in the corridor, the mage told Suri and Cecile that he would go. He had more work to do. Cecile accepted this information from Mr. Magician and thanked him for his work. After he left, Cecile abruptly grabbed Suri's hands, asking him what she was telling him. Suri didn't understand, to which the girl added that one shouldn't let personal feelings affect one's work. She thinks that Suri has behaved very unreasonably, and does he really think that His Highness will spare him because he has served him for a long time? Suri replied that of course not, to which Cecile shouted, "Why would he do that then?" Suri clarified, "Did he say he agreed? He will be frank. He decided that he will fight for Cecile's happiness, so let her not stop him." The girl didn't understand what that meant. Suri wondered if Miss Cecile remembered their first meeting. He couldn't forget, he would be a villager, so the capital's aristocrats ignored him and said he wasn't worthy to stand next to His Highness. And only Cecile had extended her hand to him. Cecile turned to Mr. Suri, but he announced that he had gone. In the evening, Cecile noted that Lady Layla hadn't eaten much today, so she prepared a small snack and wished her a pleasant appetite. Then Layla began to feel pain, and Cecile worriedly asked if she was all right. The girl replied that she couldn't eat as her stomach hurt. Cecile then suggested that she should try it later. The pain would soon recede. For now, the pain would not bother her much, and these words shocked Layla. She asked Cecile if she knew about it, to which the girl just ahed. Layla grabbed the tablecloth and swept it off the table in one fell swoop. Cecile turned to Layla, but so told her to go away. As she left, Cecile asked Lady Layla to rest. Layla was trembling all over. She urged herself not to be afraid. After all, she wanted to be. Soon she would die, and her one wish would finally come true. The Emperor spoke to his son Bist about his engagement. He suggested that it was worth cancelling it, given the situation with Count Rimuth, as his death had left Rimuth County in turmoil. The Emperor thinks his son needs to find a suitable bride. Baiste said that His Majesty would do as he always does, and if that's the end of it, he's leaving. The Emperor noted that the most important issue left is the homeless girl. He sneaked into the palace last night. This Layla is thin as a stick, except for her belly. She looks really bad. There is the question of whether she will even be able to give birth to an heir to Onlayan. Baiste doesn't know if it's necessary. He noted that it will be over in 5 months, why the Emperor is so worried. The Emperor replied that they needed a healthy heir. Suddenly, the Holy Father turned meaningfully to His Majesty, and the latter understood. He added that if the girl could give birth, he could go about his business. In the palace, one of Bist's subordinates was met by a magician. He apologized to the man for disturbing him and asked if he happened to know where His Highness was, because he was not in his office. The subordinate replied that he seemed to have gone to that place, to Lady Layla. She had closed herself in her room. Baiste stood in front of the closed door to Layla's bedroom. He asked what was wrong with her, to which Cecile replied that the girl could not close the window, so she was passing food through it, but it had been 4 days. Beast ordered the door to be broken down. The guards broke down the door, and Beast saw Layla sitting alone in a chair. Beast ran up to the girl and grabbed her arm and lifted her from that chair. Baiste ran up to the girl and grabbed her arm and lifted her from that chair. He asked her what she was doing. Layla replied that what did he care, and told him to let go. Does he mean to say he was worried and wondered why she shut down? She told him that was enough. Baiste asked her if she realized the situation she was in. The girl looks like she's going to die before she has the baby, so let her eat normally, and if the emperor finds out, he won't let her go. Layla grinned and replied that yes, that's right. The emperor. The baby. Layla abruptly turned around and walked over to the food on the floor. She picked up a piece of meat from the floor and started holding it out to her mouth. Baiste shouted, "Is she crazy? Let her not eat spoiled food." Layla didn't understand. What's the big deal? She eats anyway. She ate like this when she lived in the hut. When a person can starve to death, it doesn't matter. So the girl continued eating this meat from the floor. Baiste held out his hand to her. The girl replied that he had told her to eat, so she was asking him to stop, and get out of her sight. That's when Layla was in terrible pain and screamed. The girl didn't realize what the pain was. She had never been in so much pain before. Beast looked at the girls worriedly and ordered Cecile to get a healer. The girl declared that he should not touch her. She did not need his help. After the Count's death, his wife wept bitterly. The Count's daughter, Elizabeth, asked her mother to stop crying. She didn't believe that Viscount Roumont killed her father. She's sure that the murderer is definitely the evil Crown Prince. He had tampered with the evidence, and she would never forgive him. The sorrow of losing someone dear to her, she will deliver it to the Crown Prince. The mage, meanwhile, has been stabbed. The Emperor did it. He didn't think he'd find Baiste's rat here. If his body had not yet recovered from the cure, he might not have noticed. The Holy Father remarked that it was just like the best years of His Majesty's reign, and he was so touched. The Emperor wondered what they would do with him. He had seen a lot. They can't leave him alive. The Holy Father replied that a mage is a special person with special skills, not as much as when he was a child, but still useful. The Emperor stated that the black magic that turns blood into medicine, he would make an excellent sacrifice for it. The mage, at this time, was thinking about what he had seen and must tell His Highness. Suri and Baiste sat silently in the Crown Prince's office, doing their work. Bist turned to his assistant and stated to take care of the remaining work, and he would go to the palace. Suri asked if the prince went there too often. Bist was annoyed by his question, to which Suri replied that the girl wouldn't open the door for him anyway, and he was probably minding his own business, but the lady would die soon, and if he went to her all the time. Baiste flew up to Suri and lifted him up by his collar, threateningly telling him that if he said another word, he was really getting in over his head. Suri noted that Baiste was so strong. The Crown Prince let go of Suri, and he fell to the floor. Baiste stated that Layla wasn't dead yet, and Suri didn't realize what he had just said. Layla was eating right in bed. When she had eaten, she declared that she was full. Cecile asked the girl if she was sure, since she had eaten so little and lost weight, she might as well eat some more. The girl replied that the fetus inside her was already taking over her life, so what did Cecile care how she ate? Cecile wanted to say something, but Layla covered herself with a blanket, and saying that enough was enough, asked her to leave. She would sleep. Cecile was silent at first, but then added that if the girl needed anything, she could call her, and she would come right away. Cecile wished Lady Layla rest and left her room. Layla, however, could not relax. She had experienced such pain for the first time a couple of days ago, and now neither her body nor her heart could find peace. She hasn't seen Baiste since that day. She doesn't want to see him, but today he apparently came again, probably walking around in circles and leaving. The girl couldn't decide whether she wanted to see him or not. Suddenly someone knocked at her door. Meanwhile, Suri was rushing down the corridor and saw Miss Cecile. The girl did not understand why he was in such a hurry. The boy asked her if His Highness was on his way to Lady Layla's bedroom. Cecile replied that no, he had not come. Suri was shocked. He thought His Highness would come faster than him. Meanwhile, Layla opened the door and found that no one was there, and she thought someone had come. Layla thought that Beister would come to say hurtful words, and she wouldn't even have the strength to reply. Just as the Duke had said, only death awaited her now, like a lone flower blooming by the cliffside. Suddenly, the glass behind Layla shattered sharply, and shards flew straight at her. A man appeared in the room equipped. He hid his face under a mask and hood. Layla didn't realize who it was. The man asked the girl if she was the pregnant heir to the prince. Layla was silent, and he noted that since she was silent, he was right. That's when he pulled out a knife and shouted that it was all because of the crown prince. The assassin lunged at Layla. The girl didn't want to die and stopped the knife with her own hands. Her stomach is intact. Layla doesn't even know if Beister would be upset if the child in her died. She's determined to go all the way, although she does think she's a fool. At that moment, a black panther, the same beast she had seen outside her cabin, jumped out after the girl. In that conversation with Suri, when Beister ran away from the study, he was thinking about the fact that he was having a hard time running and needed to get out somewhere. He noticed that he was in the palace garden, and it was here that Layla was crying tears of joy. That's where he ended up. He smelled it and realized it was Layla's blood. Beast in the form of a panther attacked the assassin and felled him. Layla remembered that this beast had saved her in the forest, but she didn't understand how it had ended up here. Layla looked at her hands. There was a lot of blood. She wondered if this was how she was going to die. Everything looked cloudy in her eyes. She could see Beister's silhouette next to her. She asked him how he was here. Suddenly, Beister hugged the girl sharply and started calling her by name. Layla didn't understand what was wrong with him. It was so strange, like he was really worried about her. But then the girl fainted in Beister's arms. The girl was moved to the bed and a doctor was called. A maid was standing nearby, and she noted worriedly that the girl was running a fever and asked what they should do. The doctor replied that it was because of the wounds on her hands and that she needed to undergo surgery first. He doesn't know how long the patient will be able to hold out. Just then, Beister came up to them and asked the doctor what the hell he was waiting for. If he doesn't save her now, the prince will wring his neck and everyone in the palace. The doctor replied that, with all due respect, she was in a very bad state. He wasn't sure he could handle it alone, and he clarified, could the prince please call the Holy Father? Beister chuckled, not really ordering the Holy Father to treat Layla. Just then, a voice was heard asking if he could get them settled. Beister asked the young man who he was. The young man replied that as seen he was a mage, a colleague of the mage who was at the prince's house. The mage shared that he had written to the crown prince to come look for his missing partner, but the prince had not responded and he had arrived uninvited. The mage replied that they had a complicated situation here, so he would be understanding. The doctor indignantly asked him how he dares to be rude to His Highness, and he added that this mage is suspicious. He cannot be trusted. Beister asked him what he could do with magic. The mage replied that he was glad they had reached an understanding, and it wasn't that difficult. He would just speed up the healing process. Cecile, sitting next to Layla's bed, noted that such deep wounds had healed so quickly, and she was so glad. The mage noted that it was already done, to which Cecile replied that it couldn't be. She asked him how he did it, cured the patient so quickly. The magician replied that it was something like time magic. It accelerates the processes of the body, so the hands recovered faster. Those present did not understand how it was possible. Magic never ceases to amaze. He was addressed simply as a mage, and he asked that it was better to call him Kyle, and that he was glad to finally introduce himself. He is one of the 7 senior mages in the Imperium. Beister thanked him for curing Layla, and stated that he would be sure to pay him. Kyle thanked him, and Beister stated that he would need another favour from the magician. Prince asked him if he could do it the other way around, to which Kyle asked him to elaborate. Beister wants Kyle to use magic on her belly and stretch time to slow its growth. Beister clarified if that was possible. Kyle was a little shocked, but walked over to the girl and replied that, of course. Cecile sat silently next to the girl, and at some point she heard sounds. Lady Layla started to wake up. She didn't realize where she was. Cecile helped her to sit down and noted that this was her temporary room in the prince's palace, as the former bedroom was being restored. She asked the girl worriedly if she was feeling better, if she had any pain anywhere, to which Layla replied that she was fine. Cecile rejoiced and noted that Sir Byste was so worried about her. Layla touched her hair with her hand and turned to Cecile. The maid at that moment was startled to notice that Lady Layla's hand was as cold as ice, and noted that it must be a side effect of the magic, as Sir Kyle had said. Layla didn't understand what kind of magic she was talking about, and then she noticed in shock that the wound on her arm had disappeared. Cecile answered that it was all thanks to the new mage. He cured the wound so that the girl had no scar left. The girl decided to add that, to be honest, the mage had also enchanted her stomach. Layla didn't understand. She didn't have any wounds on her stomach. So what was the spell for? Layla wondered in horror if there was something wrong with the baby. Her stomach hadn't been directly hurt that day, but her whole body had taken a hard time. One of Layla's assumptions was that it was all because of her thoughtless actions. She was terrified to think if the child was hurt. She wasn't just afraid of not keeping her promise to the demon. She was afraid that an innocent child would die. It wasn't the child's fault in any way. It was only conceived in her belly. And what had she been doing all this time? She thought back to her family and wondered how she was different from them. Cecile noted that the mage had slowed down the processes in her belly. Layla asked in response why he had cast such a spell. Shouldn't she give birth to him as soon as possible? After all, it was in Byste's interest. Cecile replied that she didn't know herself, but she could only say one thing. Byste doesn't see Layla as just the mother of his child. Cecile has known His Highness since childhood. Layla didn't understand what the girl was talking about. Cecile in response asked her who ordered the mage to enchant her stomach was His Highness. He was worried about the girl, and that's why he gave that order. Layla wondered what he was thinking when he saved her. Yesterday and that day, the Black Panther she had met in the forest had been Byste. She didn't understand why he had saved her. Was it really to save the child? However, the look he was giving her. In the meantime, Byste had been to the Emperor. He praised him. Byste shared that Rimuth's followers had dared to try to kill the heir, but he showed the others how such treachery could backfire. The Emperor hesitated and replied that he had heard strange news. Byste did not understand what strange news he was referring to which the Emperor stated that it was said that the chief member of the imperial family was waiting in the palace for a prince for the sake of some woman. He also heard that Byste had called in a new mage and asked if it was also for the safety of the family. Byste said of course, but the Emperor somehow thought his son had fallen in love with her. The prince mockingly asked if His Majesty thought the prince would give up everything for a girl. He hadn't realized that the Emperor was so naive. The Emperor was shocked, but grinned and said that he was glad he was wrong. His Majesty then asked Byste if he could then attend the banquet tomorrow. Byste refused and headed for the exit, adding that he was busy with the business the Emperor had assigned him. Suddenly the Emperor used force and Byste fell to the floor. His Majesty threateningly asked his son what he was implying. How dare he even dare? If he wants to have the same power, he must obey the Emperor. Byste will find a new bride at the ball tomorrow, and so he must come. He has also prepared something special for him. It will be a sumptuous banquet. All this conversation was overheard by the Emperor's brother, Archduke Lumiere. Byste stood at the door to Layla's room, not realizing why he was here again. He's decided he needs to stop coming here. The Emperor's spies in his palace are watching everything, and his being here only fueled suspicion. Byste started to turn around, realizing he should go back, but then he heard a strange sigh. Byste flew into the room and ran to Layla, who was lying with her head on the table. He stepped closer to her and asked her worriedly if her stomach hurt. He mentally wondered if magic had not relieved her of the pain. Byste noticed that the girl was covered in cold sweat. Her lips were dry and her face was pale. He decided he needed to put her to bed and started asking if she could hear him. The girl said his name and he confirmed that it was him. He asked her to wake up and go to bed and offered to help her get up. The girl tried to get up and took his hand and asked why he was here, why he saved her. Byste was silent, then said her name and simply replied for them to go to bed. She was in bad shape and he would get a healer. Layla continued that he said her love was a sham and that he only brought her here to get the throne. She doesn't understand why he's doing all this as if for her, why he acts like he's worried about her and wants to save her and not the baby. Baiste lifted her into his arms, to which the girl asked him to stand for what he was doing. Baiste threw the girl on the bed and hovered on top of her. He stated that yes, he would soon become emperor. Bist will sacrifice Layla. He will have an heir and inherit the power of emperor and be reborn as a true beast of Onleon. And with that power in his hands, he will kill his own father, and then... Layla began to reach out a trembling hand to him, to his sad face, mentally wondering what was making him so upset. However, he immediately stood up abruptly and stated that there was too much idle chatter. He asked, forgetting what he had said today. It wasn't that important. Layla didn't understand how she could forget, and Baiste at this time began to swiftly leave their room. Layla stated that it felt good, even though it was an illusion, because thanks to him, she realized what it was like when someone loved her. Even though it didn't turn out to be real, it felt like love, because he pretended so well that she believed it. She's glad he can love someone too. She really hates Baiste, but at the same time she wants to say it, because thanks to him, she experienced this warmth. Layla wondered if he would give the child a name himself, call him whatever he wanted, and called him that name often, so that he would not become like her. Then Layla felt very painful and fainted. Baiste rushed over to her and, lifting her in his arms, began to beg her to wake up. The girl went on to say that she was glad she could love him. Baiste asked her to stop saying that. Layla said his name and added that he was the savior of her life. She liked him, and after saying that, she passed out. At that time, it was raining heavily outside. Father was cold to Baiste, although rather, he just wasn't interested in him. So Baiste tried to be a good child, day and night. He wasn't lonely. He had a capable maid and a kind uncle by his side. One day his uncle told Baiste that if his mother had been alive, she would have loved and cared for him. She would have slapped Emperor Clark on the head and told him he was too busy, but he shouldn't leave the child alone. Baiste asked in surprise, did his mum really beat His Majesty? Baiste then laughed heartily, noting that his mum was so cool. Uncle Lumiere then agreed with him, adding that his mum was the strongest and most beautiful in the whole world, and Baiste looked a lot like Flora. He was overjoyed. Lumiere often told Baiste about his mother. He was lonely, and these stories lifted his spirits, and the doubts that his father would one day notice him were gone. Until that day, his 10th birthday had been the Crown Prince's initiation day. Everyone greeted the Emperor and the Crown Prince. Bist was very nervous that day. He didn't even know that his father hid such emotions. From then, Bist's answer to the palace, and he wondered if today His Majesty, Bist's dad, would put him to bed. Baiste was very worried then in case he would snore. His father never paid attention to him. He really was an idiot. The Emperor looked at his son and smirked gloatingly. When they got to the room, Baiste realized they were in a torture room. He clarified with his father, weren't they going to the bedroom? Why were they here? Emperor Clark told Baiste to repeat after him. After all, if he couldn't transform, he was no longer of any use. Abruptly, his father turned into a black panther and stood before his son, then pounced on him a few seconds later. Suddenly his father turned into a huge beast and squeezed Biste's throat. His sharp fangs came close to his face. Baiste, being a child, cried and tried to run away, and he immediately sank his claws into him. The Crown Prince did manage to turn, and the Emperor remarked that this was excellent. Bist was a worthy heir to Onleon, and now he had something to tell him. The power of the Onleon blessing is inherited in a special way. You have to seduce a smelling girl, impregnate her, and she dies. His beautiful mum died the same way. Baiste has decided that he will break this sad cycle of sacrifice by death, and to do that, he needs the power of the Emperor. To the still young Baiste, the Emperor told him to have an heir, and if he brought a son, Clark would give up the throne and the power. Baiste didn't have time because he was an emperor with a lung disease, so he would find smelling women and have children like nothing ever happened. Bist met Layla. Everything was going according to his plan. Bist ordered Suri to go to the Imperial Library right now and study the books on the history of the Onleon Empire. He needs to report any information, past empresses and concubines. Suri clarified if Baiste wanted to give up the title of emperor. The crown prince stated that no, the plan had changed. Suri reminded him that if without the baby, the emperor wouldn't become emperor, to which Bist replied that he had to save Layla first, even if the baby died. The boys did not believe it, and Cecile asked him if he really wanted to save Lady Layla, for then she would also go to the emperor's library. Baiste told her no, that she should be near Layla, for the girl would be frightened if she woke up alone. Cecile didn't understand him and clarified. Didn't he want to observe the girl? Bist stated that he had to attend the banquet. He had to obey all the emperor's requests. Suri asked His Highness if he was sure. After all, he had an heir, and it was easier for him to confront His Majesty. Baiste was silent at first, and then declared that he had to be defeated in another way. This shocked Suri and Cecile. Baiste added that he needed to get ready for the ball first, and told Suri to follow him, and for him to get Kyle. Baiste confirmed his question and said that he had a very important errand for Kyle. When Layla started to wake up, Cecile was next to her. The maid noted that the girl was very sweaty. Baiste, meanwhile, was at the banquet. He noted that the emperor was late, though he usually arrived early to hide his lung disease and sat in one place until the end. He felt that at this rate, the emperor might not even make it to the banquet. Kyle appeared at the banquet and approached His Highness, noting that his humble servant had arrived on his orders. Baiste noted that the lad was late and clarified if his outstanding magic had helped. Kyle replied that he was quite fast, considering that Bist had only given him half a day, and it seemed the crown prince was hard to satisfy. Kyle apologized to His Highness and stated that he would arrive sooner next time. Baiste asked him to forget it and clarified how he knew. Kyle shared that the trail of his disappeared colleague ends in the dungeon of the imperial castle, and he means that he is already dead. The mage had said that there was an unknown force in the dungeon. Baiste clarified that the mage was probably a victim of that force, and Kyle agreed. His colleague was supposedly a victim of black magic. Baiste didn't understand what black magic was, to which Kyle replied that it was an evil force that was forbidden among them, the mages. Baiste clarified what kind of magic might be forbidden. Kyle noted that it was not magic, but rather a form of spell performed through sacrifice, and that sacrifice had conditions. Suddenly it was announced that His Majesty the Emperor was here. The Emperor walked confidently through the banquet hall. Kyle noted that this banquet was to find Baiste's bride, and he appeared as if he were the main character of the evening. Bist clarified what the conditions were, to which the mage replied that the condition was a living person, black magic, where a living person is sacrificed. The younger the better, so the result of the spell is enhanced. That's why the Holy Father collected dying children to become the incarnation of a god through black magic. Baiste didn't understand how he could not notice. He had promised him that he would give his son his powers, while he was rubbing him the wrong way. Suddenly, Bist was heading somewhere, to which Kyle asked His Highness where he was going. Baiste stated that to his palace now. If the younger the better, then right now, the most precious sacrifice is the baby in Layla's belly. So she's in danger. Layla, meanwhile, stood on the balcony, noting that she was alone again. She didn't think her words would change anything. She just wanted to make her feelings known. Layla heard the maids talking. One of them asked if the banquet was on again tonight, and the other told her that it was great to be a member of the imperial family. The prince has killed a man and brides are still lining up. She thought all she had to do was tell him what was in her heart. But her feelings never bothered him. Suddenly people burst into her room. They were guards. The girl didn't realize who these people were. One of them turned to Lady Valencia and said that His Majesty had ordered her to be taken to the imperial palace. Layla clarified about His Majesty. The same knight added that if she followed him without resistance, she would not be harmed. He held out his hand to her and told them to go that way. Layla was concerned, and then she stood up sharply on the balcony railing, shocking all the knights. She said that she would rather crash to death than go with them. The chief of the knights asked her not to do anything foolish. The emperor gave orders that the girl should be delivered alive without a scratch. The knight mentally cursed. He had to make it to the end of the banquet. Layla noted that this knight had such a menacing look. What would he do to her if he caught her? Layla realized that she couldn't escape. She didn't know what she should do. What she should do. Suddenly, a white panther appeared and blocked Layla's view. The knights were shocked as to why there was a beast in the palace. Here many began to bow, believing that it was definitely the incarnation of Onlayan, and the god had appeared before them in the form of a jaguar. The head knight didn't realize what they were doing and ordered them to get up quickly. Layla looked carefully into the jaguar's eyes and told him to let them go. In the next instant, the jaguar jumped down from the balcony with the girl on his back. The knight ordered to catch them. After running far away, Layla got off the jaguar and it turned into a man. It was Duke Lumiere. Lumiere noted that he and Layla had not seen each other for a long time and asked her if she had hurt herself. The girl replied that she had not, thanks to him. This pleased Lumiere, and Layla thanked him for saving her. She asked him why he had brought her here and what the luggage was. Lumiere was nervous, but still offered the girl to leave the palace with him. Layla didn't understand what he meant by leaving the palace. Lumiere shared that he didn't know why, but the emperor was after the girl, and he didn't have the strength to protect the girl, and Baiste wouldn't help her either. Layla clarified. Wouldn't he protect her? Baiste needs an heir. Shouldn't he protect Layla? Lumiere noted that may be true, but if he suddenly has to give up the heir, does she think he will choose her? Baiste doesn't love her, so he may not save her and make a different choice. Lumiere clarified with her that she was having doubts, right? Layla shouted that it was impossible, because Baiste needed an heir to ascend to the throne and had promised that he would name the child himself. Lumiere clarified if Beast had said that himself. Layla recalled that moment and realized that he hadn't said that himself. Lumiere replied that he knew he hadn't, and that Baiste wasn't what he used to be. Layla thought that he wanted a baby by all means. Layla wondered then what would happen to her next. Lumiere noted that it seemed the knights were catching up to them, and he notified her that they were out of time. He put his hand on her face and suggested that she run away with him, and they would find a way to save her life. He would do what he could. And Layla answered that he should help her to get out of here, to leave Baiste. Baiste, meanwhile, was already in the palace, killing in cold blood the knights who got in his way. He was followed by Kyle, who noted that the emperor's knights had invaded their palace and worse was to come. Baiste mentally agreed, breaking in like this without a reason. It means the emperor has some agenda and he's running out of time. He has so much to say to Layla, so he mentally pleads, begs her to be all right. Bursting into the room, Bist called out to the girl, but the room was empty. He didn't think Layla was safe at all. The emperor had already made the first move, and it had ended with his knights storming into the palace. In that state of affairs, she might already be dead. That's what Baiste assumed, but he can't smell her blood, which means she's already been delivered to the emperor. Baiste was mad as hell if anything happened to Layla. Here he thrust his sword at a hidden guard. As he approached him, he announced that one rat was still alive. Baiste put his sword to this knight's throat and shared that he was very curious what this guy was going to tell him now. Lumiere and Layla left the palace. The Archduke led the girl to one house. He noted that he told her that he would take care of everything himself, but this was their only option. No one lived here. He checked with the girl if she could sit down and wait. He would heat the stove. He noted that it was starting to get colder in the mornings and evenings, so they would get some rest and then go to the doctor in the afternoon, because there might still be a chance. Layla replied that she would not go, and Lumiere clarified what he meant by that. Layla replied that it meant she wasn't going to see the doctor. He had already helped her escape. She already owed him a debt of gratitude. She was grateful to the Duke. He had even found her a place to stay until the baby was born. Lumiere wanted to be indignant, but the girl added that she was very tired and could not he leave her alone. She would appreciate it if he would listen to her. Lumiere shared that an old acquaintance of his lived nearby and he would ask him to clean the place tomorrow morning. Layla wanted to refuse, but Lumiere stated that she was pregnant. She needs comfort if she wants to give birth, so please don't let her refuse at least. Layla agreed and thanked him. Lumiere asked her to rest and left the house. She thought that Baiste was a lucky prince, because he had everything she didn't. He's not like her, so it's no wonder she fell irrevocably in love with him and his tenderness for her. However, it was all a lie, and now she doesn't know who he is. Layla doesn't want to love him anymore. She puts her hand on her stomach and declares that she will have this baby and die. It is the only thing she can do. Layla apologized to the baby as she can't do more for him. The captured knight was bound. Beister clarified if that meant his wife had disappeared with the silver jaguar, to which the hostage stated that yes, that was the case. They were supposed to capture her on His Majesty's orders, but the mission had failed, and they couldn't chase her because their squad leader had already escaped. He added that he had told the Crown Prince everything he knew, and he asked to be spared. However, Bist cut him off in one fell swoop after those words. He ordered to take this guy away and make sure he didn't die. Bist's second subordinate accepted the bloody sword from him, sharing that he believed that His Majesty would shirk responsibility. Beister had expected that. The subordinate continued that at this morning's emergency meeting, he said that he had not ordered them to attack the Crown Prince's palace. He would most likely blame the squad leader. He had just disappeared after yesterday's events. Beister grinned evilly. The subordinate added that it was a problem. They had no proof that he had given that order. Bist turned to Cecile and reminded her that he had told the girl to be there for her. So why had she left her? Cecile was silent at first, but Suri stood up for her and turned to His Highness, saying that even the knights guarding the palace didn't know what was going on. And Miss Cecile was just a maid, as if she... But he had no time to finish, for he received a slap from Beister and fell to the floor. The Crown Prince declared that if they didn't find Layla, Suri's neck and the neck of his precious Cecile would suffer. Suri accepted the order and stated that he would definitely find her. Beister mentally turned to Layla, saying that he didn't care where she was. Even if on the other side of the world, he would search for her to the last. Knights with horses stood in front of Bist, and he notified them that they were beginning the search for his bride. He ordered a search from the capital to the outskirts. Suri and Kyle Beister ordered them to follow him. Suri noted that they most likely didn't have time to leave the capital. In addition, they had already activated an empire-wide search in the morning. Bist asked him why he thought the silver jaguar had appeared. Suri wanted to answer, but suddenly the emperor appeared and asked Bist where he was going so early in the morning. Bist replied that he was the one to ask. He asked if His Majesty was really trying to use his child to live forever, like the children he had sacrificed to cure his leg. The emperor replied that, as expected of Prince Onlayan, he was clever, but it was too late. The emperor asked how many people he thought wanted him as emperor. Clark had already won many aristocrats over to his side. If he didn't grow old and continue to rule, they would worship him. Yes, they wouldn't be serving a god, but him. He shuddered at the thought and began to laugh gloatingly. The emperor wondered if they could argue over which one of them would be the first to find this child. Maybe Beister could outrun his knights across the empire and find him first. The emperor remembered something else important. He would have to punish Archduke Lumiere for kidnapping the Crown Prince's heir. The emperor will distribute flyers about the manhunt throughout the empire, so Beister needs to give it his best shot. Meanwhile, Lumiere went to Layla's house, wondering if she was awake. He found her sitting at the table and placed a plate of sandwich in front of her. She had not said a word to him since their arrival. She wondered if she was really going to just give birth and die. There was really nothing he could do for her. He turned to Layla and asked her if she knew where he got that old cabin in the village. He stated that honestly, that cabin belonged to Flora. She lived here before she was brought to the palace. She was a special person. She was abandoned by her parents because of the smell, and she walked through the mountains, reached this village, and found this abandoned hut on a hill. Flora looked at this house and thought she would make this place her paradise. She restored the house for several years and even grew a garden all by herself. And not only that, she also earned money by gathering plants from the forest and taking jobs that others refused to do. Despite the insults, the smile never left her face, and the locals couldn't resist her charm. It was all because of her. Flora knew she was going to die, but she still said she loved Beister in her belly. In the end, she was the one who comforted him. Layla asked him how that was possible. They had similar situations, but Florma was able to become so strong, while she could only hate everything and suffer. Abruptly, a woman named Sophie, Florma's local neighbour, appeared in the house and said hello to them and asked indignantly what they were doing, that they still hadn't had breakfast. Sophie stated that as of today, the Duke was to help her husband and the lady was to sew with her. Lumiere apologised to Sophie for their delay. It was just that Layla needed peace of mind and such work a little. Sophie responded by saying that if you don't move during pregnancy, your body gets stiff and he already owes her a debt and can't do such a small thing. She added that they should go ahead and eat quickly and get to work, because who doesn't work doesn't eat. Baste continued his search for Layla. He and his subordinates stopped at one cabin. The Crown Prince asked if they were there. One of the subordinates confirmed it, adding that the villagers said that there were few residents here, and when strangers came, it was immediately noticeable. 2 months ago, a pregnant girl and a man settled here, staying on the outskirts. Suri noted that this was as accurate a description as possible and asked if they would come in. Baster opened the door and was amazed at what he saw. Meanwhile, Layla was doing embroidery and her grandfather came to see her. She asked him why he had come so far away, for he was no longer young. Grandpa remarked that Layla didn't seem particularly pleased with him, to which Layla disagreed. Layla laughed and asked him to sit down, for which Grandpa thanked her. Layla said that if he had stayed at home, she would have visited him, as it was hard for him to walk. If Sophie scolds him later, it's not his problem, and he himself knows that his daughter won't tolerate that. Grandfather replied that he understood that she was worried about him, but he had lived a long life. 10 years ago, when Layla was first kicked out to live in the cabin, false rumours spread on the estate, and then he was wounded and thrown to the outskirts. On the verge of death, he remembered his family back home, and he wandered there with all his might. As luck would have it, his grandfather met them. As a result, he became lame on one leg, but now he can live together with his family. Grandpa looked at the kids playing in the yard and wondered how those kids had gotten here. He laughed. When Layla sees his family, she wonders, are they so precious to him that he is willing to die? And what would it be like if she too was born into a normal family? They fight sometimes, but love and care for each other, in a house full of happiness and endless laughter. Grandpa said that if you let them stay outside, they will get sick, so you have to go get them and bring them home. Layla turned to Grandpa, saying she had a request. She wants her child to grow up in their family, and she asked if she could ask him to do so. The grandfather knelt down in front of her and asked if this was the limit of her joy, this happiness that she wanted. Layla wondered, her happiness, what it was, whether it was even realizable. Baiste, meanwhile, was welcomed home. In that house he met a couple who said they had just decided to live in an abandoned shack so her father wouldn't find out. The girl asked to spare them. They loved each other, and the child was not guilty of anything. One of the subordinates said that His Highness must be cold, so he should take a bath. However, he approached the room and declared that no one should enter until he called. He came to Layla's room. Baiste thought about finding her as soon as possible, quicker than the Emperor, quicker than anyone else. The diary Suri had found of the first Emperor only said that he had tried to save the Empress with it, but had failed. He wondered what he had been doing these 2 months. He mentally begged Layla to come back before he went crazy. One sunny day, Sophie alerted everyone that she had prepared a bunch of stuff and asked for help. At the table sat her grandfather's family, who was still asleep at this time, and the Duke and his mistress. Sophie handed the plates to Lumiere and Layla, saying you are their portion and wishing them a pleasant appetite. Lumiere pointed out that he didn't have to try so hard every time. However, Sophie asked him not to say that, because if he hadn't gotten them that medicine for the children of the capital, she wouldn't be hearing their laughter now. So she asked them to eat as much as they could. Sophie pointed out that the baby would be born soon, and Layla agreed a little awkwardly. Sophie asked if they had already thought of a name, but Layla's reaction was not good, and she wondered if she had said the wrong thing. Layla replied that she hadn't yet. Sophie reminded her that you only get one name for life, so you have to think about it, but he's going to be born soon, so you have to decide soon. Sophie's daughter tearfully told her brother not to eat her pie. Their mother asked them not to quarrel, for the program is many, and if they quarrel, no food, not served. Sophie's house and Flora's hut are on a hill, and there are 5 people in Sophie's family. It was already winter. Layla sat by the window and, putting her hands on her belly, asked her child if he liked the snow. She remembered Sophie's words, that a name is one for life, so she had to think about it. Layla wondered what he would be like, maybe like a little deer, or maybe cute like a rabbit. She remembered that he was a jaguar, so he would be a very brave child. He would be like him, and then she realized that she didn't want to think about him. It started to hurt so much that she crumpled to the floor. She knew she needed medicine and tried to get to it. She broke a plate, and at that sound, Lumiere came in and started asking the girl to wake up. The next moment, we see Layla lying on the bed in agony. Next to her were Lumiere and Sophie. The woman asked that she had taken her medication, so why wasn't I getting better? Lumiere concluded that she must be in pain, which the medication could not dull, and the attacks had become more frequent. Just this week alone, there have been 4, even though he can't hire a magician to help her. Lumiere doesn't know how long it will take, since there are so few of them. Plus, he's wanted all over the empire, and if caught, will most likely be executed immediately. However, when he went to the village to get medicine, he heard strange rumors that not only the knights and the emperor were looking for Layla, but also the knights from the crown prince's palace. Those people in the village said that it seems like the emperor and his son are now feuding without hiding it. One of them had heard that something had happened between the prince and his pregnant bride, so she had run away, and now he had to look for her. The other noted that she must have had reason to run away, and in any case, he is sure that the king prince is to blame for everything. The emperor seeks out Layla because of the child she carries inside her, but Lumiere doesn't think Baste has the same reasons. He says he doesn't care about her at all, and doesn't understand, then what his purpose is. Could it be that his uncle is missing something? Perhaps he'd overdone his guessing, and at that moment, he heard Layla say Beister's name in pain. He didn't know what she should do. Sophie put her hand on his shoulder, noting that he'd been through so much when Miss Flora had chosen the emperor, and when she decided to bear him a child. She genuinely doesn't want to see the same thing happen to this girl. She's only been through this alone, and has yet to see so much in her life. She doesn't want Layla to die, just as she doesn't want to see Lumiere suffer. Sophie added that she always believed the Duke would make the right decisions, so she asked him not to be afraid. Lumiere threw on his cloak and asked Sophie to take care of Layla while he was gone. Lumiere mentally turned to Baste, saying what if there was still something of that boy left in him. Bist, meanwhile, standing in Layla's room thinking about nothing today either, still didn't understand where she was now. He wondered if these were the feelings she had when she found out that everything was a lie, when she realized that he had betrayed her trust, and when she realized that she had lost the person she loved. Tears streamed down Baste's face, and he mentally asked Layla if she was in pain as well. Suddenly, a panting Lumiere appeared in the room and turned to Bist. The Duke stated that he wanted to ask his nephew something. The Emperor, meanwhile, was in a rage and broke a glass. It's been over 2 months, so what do they even do? The girl will soon be 8 months pregnant, and if she gives birth to this child before they find it, what will they do then? The servants asked His Majesty for forgiveness. He answered, shouting that if they have a temporary apology, it is better to go find her, even with the help of black magic. Syllables mentally did not understand. Winter has gotten better. What else does he want to want? Emperor used his power and lifted the air of the Holy Father, say that it seems that he does not understand something. If they can't find her, he won't get the position the Emperor promised him, nor the reward. So the Emperor orders him to do everything he can to find the child Unleon. The Emperor was angry and thought about how if only the nomadic tribe girl hadn't rejected him, he wouldn't have had to lug around this one. Baiste, meanwhile, was thinking about the fact that when Layla had disappeared, he felt like he couldn't have imagined such a devastation of grief. On the other hand, however, he felt calmer because it was her uncle who had taken her. Bist asked Lumiere if the girl was safe. However, the Duke said that first his nephew should answer his question as to the reason why he was looking for her. Lumiere does not understand why he has changed so much, what has made him this way. Baiste replied that on the day of his initiation as Crown Prince, His Majesty had taken him to an underground prison and forced him to convert. His uncle was shocked. Beister added that in his father's opinion, it was old enough for that, and then he learned about everything. How his beloved mother had died too, about how their kind won the hearts of women by scent, and how they reproduced. Lumiere didn't understand how he could, while mentally noting that she didn't know about it until she was 13, and he thought it was too soon. Beast remembered that his uncle had always told him how naive Flora had fallen in love with the deceitful emperor and given birth to him. And the price of that love was her death because of Beister. He killed his uncle's first love. So he decided he didn't want a repeat of that horror and would do anything to end it. He decided to kill everyone with Onleyan blood in them. He decided to wait for the emperor to pass his power to him by inheritance, after which he would kill him, and then kill his child, his uncle, and even himself. Lumiere exclaimed his nephew's name. Beister asked how his uncle thought things would have been different if he had been his son. If things had been this way, would his fate or the fate of these women have changed? Beister was crying. His uncle realized that this child had hidden so much from him, had single-handedly dismissed such a heavy burden from such a young age. Because of his grief, Lumiere had gone completely blind, shut himself off from everyone around him, and completely ignored this child no longer. He had been so foolish, and how could he help him now? Lumiere offers to take Beister to where Layla is, because he has to meet her first. Beast refused, for he doesn't want to take him back to that filthy place, doesn't want to take her back to a place where it's hellishly hard to get to her. Lumiere asked him what the umbrella was going to do then. Beister stated that he would kill the emperor. He had to do it anyway. It would just happen sooner than he had planned. Lumiere stated to him that he couldn't. After all, he himself knows perfectly well that he wouldn't stand a chance of winning if the emperor turned. Beister replied that of course it won't be easy, but he's made up his mind, and as long as he's alive, neither Layla nor the baby will be safe. He didn't want to see her suffer anymore. Then he remembered something, and realized that this was the way to defeat the emperor. Meanwhile, in the cabin, Sophie informed Layla that it was stew again today, as she still needed to eat something that promoted good digestion. Layla thanked Sophie, and she decided to ask about the Archduke. Sophie replied that he hadn't said exactly when he would be back, but she thought it would be very soon, so she could take it easy and eat first. Sophie decided to ask the girl if she liked it here. Layla hesitated, but answered that it was the first time she felt safe and good, and that she was thinking about her baby's name. Sophie was mentally surprised, because it seemed to be the first time the girl decided to start a conversation on her own. It was only after coming here that she had been able to properly relate to her baby. Until then, he had been a child for Beister, and then a child who would kill her, and she didn't know at all how to feel about him. Layla wondered how Flora had managed to keep her love for her child. She thinks that she was better and wiser than her or Bist, but now it seems as if she can feel her warmth. Layla thought about Beister. She doesn't know. He may not be a good person, but he is the life and love that Flora left behind. Right, and so did her baby. To the child she gave the name Florence. Meanwhile, Bist was in Layla's room when he left asking Suri if everything was ready. Suri confirmed that it was, and Bist stated for them to go. Bist stood outside in front of his knights and announced that there would be a ball tonight in honor of the emperor's birthday, and among them were those who had lost their younger brothers because of him. There are also probably those who have lost their parents and friends, so this is the moment to avenge them all, and tonight the emperor will die. Everyone at the palace was celebrating the emperor's birthday. Some people still couldn't believe that the way His Highness was proposing could really defeat the emperor. It would be difficult for him to do it alone, but if they continued to work together, it would be possible. Evening came, and Bist took his father to a private conversation. The emperor inquired what business his son had called him for. Bist noted that he thought the emperor was quite agitated about not being able to find his child, but for some reason was wasting his time. The emperor didn't realize that Bist was saying such a thing, because he had fully recovered, and so there was no need to look for him anymore. Beister asked if he thought that there would be no consequences after using black magic. He added, asking if he truly believed he was cured to the end. The emperor was outraged at how a petty worm like the crown prince who hadn't even learned the true power of Onlayan, dared to say such a thing. Baiste added that His Majesty could not cure a body that had long since rotted away, so the only one who was a worm was the Emperor. The Emperor was furious that Baiste was allowing himself to behave like this, even in human form. Maybe he'd have a chance of winning if he was a jaguar. How stupid is he? He wishes his son dead. Baiste tried to fight off the Emperor's strength with his sword, but the Emperor shouted that it was useless. However, Bist replied that he had already said that he was not going to give up so easily, because he had lost too much by acting like that, and he did not want to become a beast. The Emperor was angry at this, as if he didn't want to become a beast. It was a holy power, and then he turned into a jaguar. Baiste shouted that now and then the Emperor noticed the mage and stated that they wouldn't be able to overpower him with any magic. However, he noticed that the transformation had stopped. He didn't understand how that could happen. The lights came on in the room, and the guests thought that there must be some kind of performance being prepared in the temple. Just then, a scream went up. People saw the jaguar and shouted that it was a monster. Baiste attacked the Emperor at this moment, thinking about things as he had envisioned. When Rimut County sent a mercenary to kill Layla, the moment he took human form to embrace her felt like an eternity. You are powerful in your form, but the moment you transform, you are defenseless. The Emperor can't believe it. He's the successor to the holy power of Onlayan. He can't fall to a weakling like Baiste. Baiste asked him where the power he was so proud of was. He was the last successor to the power of Onlayan, and let him die. The guards noted that it was dangerous here. Everyone should leave, and one of the guests asked if His Highness had destroyed the monster. Suri informed His Highness that they were finished with what he had instructed. Mentally, Suri noted that it seemed to him or Baiste was completely out of his mind. The guests cheerfully noted that His Highness had defeated the monster. Baiste stated that they should now send out to find Layla. The grandfather left Layla's hut, saying that they would see each other in the evening, and that the girl should take good care of her health. He stopped a little way from the house and thought that it was probably best not to tell Layla what had happened in the imperial palace. He doesn't want her to worry for nothing. He's wondering what's up with the Duke. Suddenly, Grandpa bumped into someone. It turned out to be Baiste, who intimidatingly asked where Layla was. Grandpa coughed and stated that he didn't understand what the man was saying. His hearing wasn't good and he couldn't hear. Baiste noticed the girl's hand in the window. She hid under the window in terror, covering her mouth with her hands. She didn't understand why he had come here. He didn't need her. He could do just fine without her, but did he really want to take her baby? She noted that only her child and she left the house through the back door. Grandfather said indignantly that Bist might be a high-ranking person, but does that allow him to enter someone else's house without permission? He didn't think that people from the imperial palace were so brazen. Baiste addressed Grandpa by name and told him to calm down now. Grandpa clarified how he knew his name. However, Baiste remained silent and simply walked into the house. He could feel her. The scent may be gone, but he could feel her warmth and presence. He opened the back door and wondered if she was running away from him again. The girl kept walking, asking herself not to look back, no matter what happened. Just don't look back. That's when she heard her name. Standing behind her was Baiste. The girl rushed on, but he shouted at her that she might hurt herself and told her to please stop. The girl reached the cliff and wondered if she could even run away. Baiste had already caught up to her and called out her name. The girl turned around. She didn't know what to say. He made her drop everything and put her at mortal risk, hurt her incredibly like no one had ever done, and now suddenly looked so helpless. Baiste pointed out that it was very dangerous out there and held out his hand to her and told her to walk faster towards him. Mentally, she asked him not to make her laugh, and already out loud she was saying that the biggest danger was him. The girl urged herself not to fall for it. She asked him what he was up to again, why he was suddenly acting like this. She had nothing more to give him, so let him go. Baiste replied simply that he missed her. He missed her a lot. Layla thinks that's bullshit, and that he hasn't changed at all. Baiste asked for her forgiveness, for he had hurt her incredibly badly, and he realizes that no matter what he did, she would not be able to forgive him. However, would she give him a chance to make things right? He stated that he would save her. Both her and the baby, he will save them both. Layla thinks it's a lie, but Byster replied that he's not lying and asks the girl to please go to him. Layla stated that she doesn't want to and asks him to please stop. Byster wondered if it's really that bad. She doesn't even look in his direction. She doesn't even want to hear his voice. Does she really hate him that much? Byster feels absolutely shattered right now. Layla states that when she felt that he loved her, she was so happy. No one had ever been so good to her, and he had no idea how much he had turned her worthless life around then. It was all a lie, however. It was all over again. She was always alone. She didn't care if she was lonely. She was used to it by now. Still, she couldn't go. The smile he gave her, the deeds he did for her, and his unique warmth, how would she be able to forget all of that? So she decided she was better off dead. Basty would like something, but Layla tells him that's enough. She feels like she's going to be tricked again. That look he has on her, it reads in it that he doesn't want her to die. So if suddenly he really is her... Well before the girl could finish, Byster tearfully declared that he loves her. She is more important to him than anything in life. She is the sweetest, kindest person in the world, and he can't live without her. He really wants to be with her. Layla was dumbfounded and wondered if she could be told that she didn't really want to be lonely. In response, she asked him tearfully if it was possible to live. In fact, she doesn't want to die herself. Byster answered her that, of course. Layla asked him why she had to suffer so much, why there was no one around her, why she was always alone. She wanted to be loved too. She asked him to please save her. Byster asked her to grab his hand and he would save her. Layla wondered if she could grasp it, that hand. She started to hold it out, but then the question popped into her mind. What if he lied to her again? The girl stumbled and began to fall off the cliff, but Beast caught her arm in time. He held her with the hand where the wound he had received in the fight with the Emperor had reopened. However, he still applied his strength and lifted the girl up. Layla asked worriedly if he was all right, and then she was horrified to see that his mouth was bleeding. She didn't understand what was wrong with him, why there was so much blood, if it was because of her. Byster barely replied that no. How could it be because of her? He was glad she was safe. Then he passed out and collapsed next to her. Tears were streaming down the girl's face. She wondered why she didn't believe him that he loved her. She realized too late and stupidly. The girl burst into tears and shouted his name loudly. Suri heard this cry and went to see Lady Layla and His Majesty. He immediately rushed over to him, asking what was wrong. He realized that the wound that had been treated in a hurry was bleeding again. He wasn't allowed to come here. He wasn't fully recovered yet. Layla, sitting next to him, stated that it was because of her. She had doubted him like a fool. Suri turned to Lady Layla and asked her to go with him. They can still save His Majesty. He added that there was no time and asked her to help him please. There was a need to hurry. In any other situation he would have been fine, but now his life was in actual danger. Suri asked the mistress to leave after him. Suri dragged Bayste to the hut and ordered him to quickly bring everything he needed for treatment. One of the guards brought a warm, wet towel, to which Suri asked where the first aid kit was. The guard stated that he would look for her and notified her that he had found a first aid kit. Suri ordered him to give it to the doctor. Layla sat in a chair, thinking from Byster. Her grandfather appeared nearby and was glad the girl was okay. But he excitedly said, did the girl know how worried he was, that she had run to the mountains in her condition? Sophie also inquired about Madam's condition. Layla told her grandfather and Sophie that she was fine, but Byste. Grandfather called him Crown Prince, but then hesitated, because now he was to be addressed as His Majesty. Layla stated that it was all because of her, and she asked why they had to be apart all the time, and what if he didn't wake up? The grandfather turned to the girl and asked her to have faith in the one she loved. If she doesn't hope and wait for him, then who will? He will surely cope for the sake of being by her side, and her child cares for his father too. The birthday children's souls are wandering nearby, and if he sees that his father is hurt, he might be able to help him get back to them. So he suggests her to just have faith and wait. Suri asked the doctor about His Majesty's condition. The doctor replied that it's too early, too deep, and he has lost a lot of blood. Sophie remarked that what a fuss, she will probably make some hot tea for now. Suddenly someone knocked on the door. Baiste, meanwhile, felt as if he were floating in water. He felt cold and so quiet, as if he had felt this way before. He remarked that it would be nice if he stayed in this cozy place forever. Suddenly a small kitten was swimming beside him. He took his shirt with his teeth, getting his attention, and then in one direction. Baiste assumed the kitten was offering to go with him. However, he didn't want to. He wanted to stay there. Well, here we heard someone say his name. Baiste looked at the floating kitten and asked her not to leave him, please, and said Layla's name. When he opened his eyes, a crying girl was standing over him. She noted that he was awake. Bist not crying. He suggested that she would never be separated again, and that he would never let her go again. He declared that he loved her, to which Layla replied that she loved him very much too. Grandfather looked at the sweetly embracing Baiste and Layla in bed. Someone remarked that did His Majesty, who seemed about to die, look so healthy. Sophia approached a young man, and it appeared that he had incredible abilities. The young man replied that he had simply diluted the skills that God had given him. In addition, His Majesty has not yet fully recovered, so it is worth watching his condition. Sophie remarked that I was so embarrassed in front of this young man, because she did not know he was a priest and did not want to let him in. The young man laughed and said that it was not a bad thing to be cautious, and that he could not believe he was a priest. Suri decided to encourage him to believe in himself, and wasn't he the only one who hadn't wasted his holy powers in the fallen imperial temple? It was only because of his incredible abilities that His Majesty had appointed him to this position. The young man thanked Suri for his words. Sophie asked him if he meant that he had foreseen that he needed to save His Majesty, and that was why he had come here, because he had arrived just in time. Suri stepped in. He replied that even though they had declared the end of the previous emperor, as they themselves knew, the aristocrats couldn't accept it easily. Eventually, His Majesty launched a coup d'etat, and in the process, he was nearly killed several times. However, despite that, he didn't receive false treatment, went in search of Lady Layla. So just in case, Suri asked the priest to come as soon as he had the chance. Grandfather remarked that Suri had done a good job. Suri replied, "What effort? Just a strong worry for His Majesty. Now all they have to do is return tomorrow he imperial palace." Suddenly, Baiste got up from the bed and shouted Suri's name. He stated that his assistant now prepared everything for the return of the castle. Layla was in pain at this moment, and His Majesty said that he had to hurry because Layla could not take it anymore. Just a few minutes ago, the girl began to stir in her bed. Bist told her that she could still sleep since it was still night. Layla snuggled closer to him and asked him not to be sick anymore. He told her that he was fine and that when she was near him, winter didn't hurt at all. The girl sat down on the bed and said that he was lying, to which he replied that he didn't mean it. Layla laughed and said that she knew he was lying, so she would stop worrying so much. She added that she still felt that they knew very little about each other, and she wanted to find out everything about him. The girl asked him if he could share that with her, to which Baiste agreed, because he wants to get to know her too. Layla clarified, so His Majesty the Emperor, his father used black magic. Baiste confirmed this, adding that he used it to cure his illness and then gain immortality. In order to use it, he needed the life of a small child. Layla didn't understand how it was possible. Bist shared that you confirmed the children who were locked in the temple basement, as well as the new priest. But despite all that, there were those who tried to protect the former emperor. Because he needed to deal with them, he came to her so late and apologized to the girl. He wanted to solve all the problems first and then meet her. Layla replied that she owed him an apology. Baiste didn't understand why. The girl replied that she only thought about how hard it was for her and ran away. She asked to be forgiven, but added that on the other hand, she thought that while she was away from him, she had been able to sort herself out a little. While she was in this house where Mrs. Flora once lived, she had a lot of things to feel from, you realize. That's why it seems that she has matured during this time, and this baby, she thinks she has been able to love Florence. Beast asked about the name, to which the girl replied that it was their child's name. After all, she once asked him to name it, so she apologizes that she ended up deciding everything on her own. Beast clarified if it was a name derived from his mother's name. Layla confirmed this, adding that she would like him to be like her, and smiled sweetly. Beast was silent, but he said that it was a beautiful name and thanked her. Suddenly, the baby in Layla's belly moved. She noted that it was the first time he moved, and she was so glad. She had also asked Florence's spirit to protect him. She wondered if he had heard her words then. She thinks he's like his father, so he's very smart. And then the baby moved again. Baiste looked at the happy girl and turned to her and told her again that he loved her, after which he kissed her unexpectedly. With kisses, he started to go lower, and the girl declared that they couldn't now. Abruptly, she felt a pain in her stomach. Baiste restlessly started calling the girl's name. The next instant, they were back at the castle. Bist's subordinates clarified if His Majesty had returned. Bist ran to his desk and asked them if everything was ready. The subordinates replied that yes, they would cut open the stomach and take out the baby. Suri didn't understand how His Majesty wants to cut a living person. He asks to think of something else. In the beginning, he was afraid that they wouldn't be able to find a way to save Lady Layla. But the solution that His Majesty suggested, maybe this way they could succeed. However, this difficult endeavour would require the help of absolutely everyone. Bist bowed and asked him to take care of Layla. One of his subordinates excitedly asked His Majesty to please stop and raise his head. Suri told him not to worry, for they would rally their forces and save Lady Layla and the child. Baiste ordered him then to guard the door from the outside. The Emperor came to the girl and asked her if she was ready. The girl said yes. The operation began. Baiste turned to the mage Kyle, bidding him farewell, to which Max agreed. Baiste looked at the smiling girl. He remembered their conversation. Everyone had told him it was crazy, but he believed they could do it, and of course it didn't seem like a normal plan. He turned to the girl then and asked her if she realized it was the only way. The girl then replied that she thought that if there was a better way, he would have told her about it. However, the girl has conditions. Let him not think of her first. If the situations get complicated, then let him not save her, but take care of their child Florence. Baiste was dumbfounded, but the girl declared that only if he promised her that, she could agree to this crazy plan. The guy replied that if her life is their child, then for her life is her, Layla, so surely he will save them both. The girl replied that well, she believed in him and suggested that he live happily ever after with the three of them. Kyle turned to Mrs. Layla, warning her that she would only be asleep for a short while, so she just needed to relax. The girl agreed, and Kyle used magic to order her to fall asleep. After that, the girl closed her eyes, and he officially declared that she had fallen asleep. Baiste ordered him to make sure she didn't wake up during the surgery. We need to cut the stomach down to the muscles without damaging the internal organs. The tool for doing so was held by the Emperor. He was anxious but began cutting, mentally noting that there was no turning back. When he finished cutting, he shouted to Kyle what was needed now, and Mac ordered him to slow down. The bleeding had stopped, and they had to get the baby out quickly. The doctor and Cecile pulled the baby out, noting that it was a boy. He's perfectly fine, a healthy baby. He was handed into the arms of his father, who at first rejoiced, but then became more serious, for now was the most important moment, and he declared that the two of them must act coherently, the magician and the priest. And they both said they would act as they rehearsed. Kyle then removed the slowing spell, and the priest began to use his power to heal the wound. Baiste watched this and mentally asked the girl to please give him another chance, a chance to make her happy. The next moment we see Layla open her eyes. Baiste is standing next to her and asks her what she is thinking about. The girl didn't understand what it was about. He repeated that their child, who he looked more like. The guys stood next to the crib, and looking at the baby, Layla wondered if she had given birth to a child by Baiste. However, when she managed to leave the cabin, Baiste turned to her, saying that while she was gone, he realized something, how much he missed her, how much he cherished her, and finally how much he loved her. After the operation was over, Baiste called out to the girl and screamed for her to wake up. The girl heard this and opened her eyes. She turned to him and asked him why he was crying. He said he wouldn't shed any more tears for her. The girl started to reach out to him and called him a fool, adding that she had told him not to worry. Afterward, she asked why she had so little faith in her, and that their child Florence would laugh about his daddy being a crybaby. Cecile, with the baby in her arms, turned to Mistress and asked her if she wanted to look in on her son. The girl asked Beste and took the baby wrapped in a blanket in her arms. She poked him on the cheek, and the baby smiled. She asked Beste in surprise if he had seen the baby smile. Beste agreed, noting that the child also seemed to realize that today was an incredibly happy day. Beste and Layla were lying on the bed. The boy asked the girl if she was okay, to which Layla replied that she said she was fine. It honestly doesn't hurt her, but it's still amazing how in just a few days it's all healed. Bist placed his hand on her stomach, planning to say something. The girl clarified that he was so worried about the wound on her stomach. Is it really that disgusting? The guy replied that no, that wasn't the point at all. Case asked if he could just hug her. However, Biste was confused at first, and in the next moment he already started kissing the girl. Her lips are so sweet to him. He can't imagine how a person's lips can taste so good. When he touches them, they are completely full of that sweet juice. Biste began kissing the girl all over her body. He wanted to enjoy it a little more, just a little more. But then the baby cried, and Layla jumped up and immediately ran to him. She took him in her arms and asked him if he had slept well. Biste wondered if he could have gotten a good night's sleep, because he felt like it hadn't even been an hour since he'd fallen asleep. Layla replied that she'd been told that babies tend to wake up a lot. Biste told her to give him the baby. He would be supportive, and she needed to rest. But Layla refused, as she wants to hold him herself. Looking at him, she asked why he was so beautiful, to which Biste replied that it was probably because he looked like her. Layla indignantly replied that no, he was the one who was born so handsome. Bist didn't understand. Well, the girl noted to look for himself. His hair is black. The guy in response noted that here are blue eyes he has like his mum. Layla agreed, but added that the nose and lips looked just like him, and since he was descended from his father, she thought he'd grow up to be a handsome boy. Biste noted that usually Onleon's children didn't look like their mothers. All the heirs were the same as the previous emperor, with dark hair. The first grey-haired man in history was his uncle Lumiere, but he had more strength than the others. Even so, though, his eyes were the colour of gold. Layla asked Biste if their son wasn't cute, to which he agreed, saying he thought so too, but still he was more worried about the girl. Biste handed the baby to Cecile and asked her to take care of Florence. The girl accepted his order. Back in the room, Biste swooped down on Layla and flopped her on the bed. As he began to remove his shirt, Layla asked him embarrassedly if he hadn't given Florence for the girl to rest. Biste smiled sweetly in return and kissed the girl's hand, saying that he would do it slowly and gently. The girl replied that she didn't understand what that meant at all, to which Bist replied that it meant he needed to show her how it felt. Meanwhile, Suri clarified whether there weren't other people who could take care of Florence. Cecile noted that it was she who had been summoned by His Majesty. Suri wondered if it was really necessary to be in such a hurry. Suri and Cecile went out to the balcony. The boy turned to the girl, saying that now she too could be happy. But before he could finish, Cecil replied that it wasn't just that she was 6 years older. He would soon become an aristocrat in a high position, as he would be under His Majesty the Emperor, and she was just a servant born in a poor family. Suri asked indignantly, "So what? He doesn't think there's no point in her distancing herself from him now for that reason." To him, her age and status is completely irrelevant because he loves her. He has a lot of money and can do anything she wants for her. If she wants, he'll even grow a beard for her, and then he'll look like he's the same age as her. Cecile warmed his mouth with her hand, telling him to stop already. She said they needed privacy in the room first, and took his hand and led him in. Suri resented that moment. How could Cecile just pick up and leave him? It really was too much. Just at that moment, a butler approached her, stating that His Highness was calling for her. Cecile noted that His Highness Florence was asleep, so Suri would need to be quieter. Besides, what could be more important than the Emperor's orders? Suri asked indignantly whether it was the Emperor or someone else. Cecile replied, It's just like him to talk like that to His Majesty. If he doesn't want to turn down the volume, he'd better get out of here and prepare for the imperial wedding. On the day of the wedding, the people joyfully proclaimed His Majesty the Emperor and Her Highness the Empress. Baste, holding Layla's hand, asked her if she was ready. The girl agreed, and they headed for the exit, the fourth emperor on Leon. When he took the throne, there were many forces that tried to oppose him, but he managed to overpower everyone with his incredible abilities. He was good at everything: politics, diplomacy, literature. Especially, he spared no effort in nurturing talent. The priest he supported, because of his outstanding strength of reputation, became the youngest saintly father in history. He also had a positive attitude towards magic, so he raised several mages and built the first magic tower on the continent. As he worked hard for his side and gained the trust of the people, more and more people respected him. Everyone said that there would never be another ruler in history so prominent and wise, and that powerful ruler, the fourth emperor, is his father, Bicester Black Dion Leon.